Chapter 1790. Predestined for 3 lives, marriage alliance. 3. You can also call me by my name, Yin Yu. That was given to me by my mother, and only she has ever called me that. Of course, I hope that Yin Yin will always call me husband, especially in bed. Mu Yin was originally immersed in the 2 words, Yin Yu, that Di Ming Ju told her. For some reason, she felt as if she had heard these 2 words a long, long time ago. It was another deep, passionate, and husky male voice that had spoken in her dreams over and over again in her ears. Yin Yu, Yin Yu, Yin Yu. Remember, never forget. Mayan is in a trance when she hears the man's shameless last sentence. Immediately, the thought that he was about to grasp immediately vanished into thin air. She fiercely glares at Di Ming Ju, grabs his hand, and presses it on the fate-determining stone. So much nonsense. Do you not want to form a marriage alliance with me? Di Ming Ju restrains his emotions, and together with Mayan, he spreads out his palms and firmly places them on the smooth, mirror-like surface of the stone of predestined fate. Both of them closed their eyes and silently recited their birthdays. Di Ming Ju slowly opens his eyes and says in a clear voice, I, Di Ming Ju, am willing to enter into a marriage contract with Jun Mayan today. From now on, for all eternity, only Jun Mayan is like the blood of my heart. I can't give her up. I can't abandon her. If this agreement is broken, heaven and earth will not tolerate it, and all living things will hate it. The fate stone glowed with a red light. It flickered gently as if it was breathing, as if it was waiting for something. Mayan also opens her eyes, and with a clear voice, she says, I, Jun Mayan, today wish to enter into a marriage contract with Di Ming Ju. Henceforth, for all eternity, we will never be separated. If I break this agreement, I will be forsaken by both man and God. As soon as she finished speaking, her spiritual power and divine sense poured into the fate stone. The flickering red light of the fate stone suddenly turned into a dazzling light. Then, a ball of light floated out from the glossy red mirror. The ball of light slowly stretches out, turning into a long red thread. It pierces through Di Ming Ju's chest, wrapping around his heart. The other end penetrates Mu Yan's chest and similarly twines around his heart. However, at the next moment, something strange happened. The red line that pierced through Mu Yan's chest was actually bounced out by an invisible force. Mayan stares blankly and subconsciously reaches out to grab the red thread. However, on the back of her hand, a red light began to shine. The light slowly converged into a red concentric pattern on her fair skin. The moment the heart pattern appeared, the red line that flew out from the fate stone seemed to have received some sort of notification. He suddenly flew up into the sky. Even the red thread that's wrapped around Di Ming Ju's heart also flies out, sinking into the fate-determining stone. The fate stone, which was originally emitting a red glow, flickered for a moment before it completely dimmed. Mu Yin was dumbfounded. What's going on? It's very obvious that the marriage contract between her and Di Ming Ju was not successful. But why did the red thread pop out from her body? What was the same heart mark on the back of her hand? Mu Yin blankly raised her head, but in the next moment, her heart suddenly jumped. Because the man standing opposite her had an indescribably ugly expression on his face. His eyes were filled with shock, anger, and pain. Mu Yin had never seen Di Ming Ju lose his composure like this. She couldn't help but step forward, wanting to grab Di Ming Ju's hand. What's going on? However, before her hand could touch Di Ming Ju. Chapter 1791. If you go, never come back. 1. She hears the incredulous voice of the Star Wolf beside her, unable to form a marriage contract. Jun Mayan, you already have a marriage contract. What? Mu Yin was shocked. I already have a marriage contract. How come I don't know? Star Wolf gnashed his teeth as he glared fiercely at her. The killing intent in his eyes seemed to want to tear her into pieces. You have to ask yourself, the one heart seal on your hand is proof that you have already entered into a marriage alliance with someone. You clearly have an engagement, yet you still deceive our Jun Shang's feelings. Jun Mayan, You're shameless." As soon as he said this, everyone in the square moved. Xiao Bao's gaze was as fierce as a wolf cub's. He quickly took out his Bixia sword and pointed it at the Star Wolf. The 6 people of the Xiao Yao school moved in unison. Without hesitation, they unsheathed their weapons. All the Nether Flame army got into an attacking formation. However, the fastest one isn't them, but Di Mingju. Star Wolf hadn't even finished speaking when his entire body was sent flying by an enormous force. He heavily collided with a rock and spat out a mouthful of blood. Ben Jun said, "If you dare to insult mine one more time, then get out of the polar domain." Xing Lang didn't even care about the pain in his body as he tumbled and crawled on the ground, crawling over. "Junshang, I beg Junshang to retract your orders. This subordinate won't dare to do it again." His tears can't help but roll down. This subordinate just really feels unworthy for Junshang. You're so devoted to Jun Mayan. How could she treat you like that? Mayan's brows tightly knit together. She doesn't pay attention to the Star Wolf. Instead, she unblinkingly looks at Di Mingju. "I've never made an engagement with anyone, and I don't know what's going on." "Di Mingju, do you believe me?" She walked towards the man and reached out to grab his hand. However, just as the 2 people's fingers touch, Di Mingju suddenly takes a step back, as if he's pricked by something. The light flickering in his eyes was too intense and complicated. There was pain, jealousy, unwillingness, and a world-destroying, killing intent. The air around them began to stir. The ground of Hellflame Valley began to shake violently. The calm surface of the lake seemed to be boiling and burning with magma, bubbling nonstop. Di Mingju suddenly turns around, wanting to leave. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from destroying everything around him, causing the entire continent to collapse. He's even more afraid of hurting Yin. The moment she sees Di Mingju turn around, Mayan's heart feels like it's being ruthlessly clutched by a hand. She suddenly raises her voice and enunciates each word. "Di Mingju, I don't care what other people think, as long as you believe in me." Di Mingju's hands tightly clench into fists, as if he wants to turn around. However, the entire Hellflame Valley was shaking even more violently. The spiritual power in the air seemed to have become sparks that could explode at any moment. The surrounding pressure caused most of the Nether Flame army to faint without any resistance. Even the faces of the people from the Xiao Yao sect were pale and covered in cold sweat. In the Pilyang mountain range adjacent to Netherflame Valley, countless ferocious beasts ran amok and fled in panic. Miserable cries could be heard from time to time. Suddenly, a loud bang came from the side of the lake. That piece of fate stone, which even a heaven-shaking sacred object might not necessarily be able to destroy, had actually exploded. The complexions of Han Yi, Ing Mei, and the Star Wolf greatly changed, and they kneeled down. "Di Jun, please calm down." Chapter 1792. If you go, don't ever come back. 2. Di Mingju closes his eyes, and his figure slowly disappears. Mu Yin stares at his disappearing figure in a daze. She slowly lowers her eyes, the corners of her mouth hooking up into a self-deprecating smile. "Mother." Xiao Bao tightly hugs Mayan's thigh, raising his head to look at her. His big watery eyes are filled with worry. "Nyangqin, don't be sad. Daddy is a scoundrel. We don't want Daddy, and Xiao Bao doesn't want Daddy either. Xiao Bao only wants to be with Nyangqin forever." Xiao Bao's voice was cold, and his expression was solemn. But as she spoke, she couldn't help but tear up. Mu Yin didn't want to cry at first. Having experienced the most tragic betrayal in both her previous and current lives, she already knew that crying was the most cowardly and useless behavior. However, when she saw Xiao Bao crying uncontrollably, her eyes reddened, and she bent down to hold him in her arms. "I'm sorry, Xiao Bao. Nyangqin couldn't give you a complete family." In fact, she knows how much Xiao Bao likes his father, Di Mingju, and how much he longs to form a new family with her and Di Mingju. Xiao Bao tightly hugged her neck and buried his face in her shoulder, desperately shaking his head. Woo-woo, no, Yangqin is the most important person in this world to Xiaobao. Daddy is bad. Xiaobao doesn't want to bother with him anymore. Woo-woo-woo. Miss June, little master. Hanyi couldn't help but open his mouth. This subordinate still couldn't help but say a word of justice for June Shang. You might not understand what it means to sign the marriage contract on the Fate Stone, even though you have already signed the marriage alliance. That means that if Miss June's marriage contract is not dissolved, General June will never have the chance to be with you properly. Evening Mei said softly. June Shang has been waiting for this day for a long time. Xing Lang hatefully says, June Mayan, do you know that ever since June Shang met you, he has been making all kinds of arrangements in the God's domain, so that one day, when you become the mistress of the polar domain, you won't encounter any obstacles. But what did you repay him with? Are you already engaged to another man? Are you worthy of June Shang? Xiaobao spun around, his eyes bloodshot and tear-stained as he swung his evil-warding sword. I won't allow you to yell at my mother. The members of the Xiao Yao sect quickly stood beside Mu Yin. Lung Yuma said coldly, You dare to shout at our junior sister again? Who cares if you are the extreme domain sovereign emperor? This old lady will beat you up until you look for your teeth all over the ground now. Even Yun Ruhan, who was usually the most good-tempered, had a cold expression on her face. Before we figure out what happened, if anyone dares to slander our junior sister, don't blame us for being impolite. Among the Nether Flame army, Bai Yi Chen, who was the only one who did not faint, gritted his teeth and said coldly, Please get out of my Nether Flame valley. Mu Yin slowly exhales and stands up. Han Yi and Ing Mei look at her, wanting to say something but hesitating. Mu Yin says indifferently, You can leave. Miss June. Han Yi still wants to say something, but Mayan has already turned around and left. This time, she didn't even hold Xiaobao's hand. She just gently stroked his head and said in a gentle voice, Mother is fine. Don't worry. I just need to be alone for a while, okay? Xiaobao's eyes are filled with worry, but he still obediently nods. Until the door of Mu Yan's room closes, there is no sound. The people of the Xiao Yao sect then look towards the direction of Jimbo Lake. There was a piece of fate determination stone there just now, but it has already been broken into pieces. Chapter 1793. Leave, never come back. 3. What happened in that short period of time just now? Why did the marriage alliance that they had happily agreed to fail? Could it be that little junior sister really had a marriage contract with someone? Who was the one who had a marriage contract with little junior sister? On the summit of the Danyang mountain range, Luo Yunxiao looks at the heart-shaped mark on the back of his hand, his eyes filled with fear. He was standing very far away from the valley. Otherwise, he would have been discovered by Di Mingju long ago. He could clearly see what was happening there, but he couldn't hear the voices coming from there. Luo Yunxiao didn't stay here to witness anything with his own eyes. He was just reluctant to leave, reluctant to abandon the last glimmer of hope. However, the scene of Di Mingju and Mayan forming a marriage contract and becoming a couple from then on did not happen. Clearly, there was a shocking change in the valley. The red line that flew out from the Stone of Destiny, after entering Mayan's body, was bounced out. Luo Yunxiao had seen the contract in front of the 3 Live Stone, so he clearly knew that the marriage contract between Di Mingju and Mayan had failed. But why did it fail? The Heavenly Tao would never deliberately separate fated people. Among the immortals, there was no such thing as a match or not. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Luo Yunxiao felt his chest heat up. Then, a heart-shaped mark slowly appeared on the back of his hand. Qi-Wen's cultivation wasn't as high as Luo Yunxiao's, and her divine sense and eyesight weren't as good as his. Standing so far away, she could only vaguely see the lake and waterfall of the valley. So she was completely unaware of Luo Yunxiao's shock. Noticing that the heart-shaped mark on the back of Luo Yunxiao's hand had lit up, Qi-Wen exclaimed, Hey, it's a marriage contract. Why did it suddenly light up? Could it be that the Demon Lord's daughter, who was stranded outside, is also nearby? Luo Yunxiao's eyes suddenly widened, and his pupils contracted. His rapid breathing made his chest unconsciously heave up and down. he asked in a hoarse voice. Chiwen, what did you just say? Chiwen, the marriage contract that Wuji arranged for you and the Demon Lord's daughter is the highest level of the 3 Lives Stone. Within 3 years, as long as the marriage contract has not expired, the fates of the two of you will be linked together. If she activates the 1 heart seal for some reason, the 1 heart seal on your side will also be triggered. As Chiwen spoke, she scratched her head. Master, don't you already know about this? Why are you asking me? Master, what happened to you? Why was his expression so strange? It seemed sad and happy at the same time. It was as if he had caught a glimmer of hope, but also as if he was deeply afraid of an irrecoverable ending. After a long time, he slowly closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, his expression had already returned to normal, and he had turned back into the bright and clear young Master Yin Xiao. Seeing him turn around and step onto the flying sword, Chiwen hurriedly rushed over. Master, aren't you going to watch? Could it be that Mei Yinyin's engagement had ended? Where are you going, Master? Luo Yunxiao gazed into the distance and murmured, I want to return to the Xiaoxin continent to confirm some things. No matter what, he had to know the identity of the woman he was engaged to. Who exactly is the daughter of Jun Shitian, the Devil Lord? As soon as Mayan enters the room, she immediately asks Qi Huang, what's going on? Why is there a marriage contract on me? I haven't lost my memory, so I can be sure. Since I was a child, I have never married anyone, nor have I had any marriage contract. Could it be that a marriage contract can be made without my consent? Chapter 1794. Leave, never come back, for Qi Huang had a gloating look on his face. How would I know why? But the situation you're talking about is not impossible. Did you see Di Mingju's expression just now? It's like he's going to tear the adulterer's body into pieces. It's a pity that the pretty boy Luo Yunxiao isn't here. Otherwise, I can let Xiao Bao and Little Phoenix provoke Di Mingju into killing him. Ha ha ha. Mu Yin presses the throbbing veins on her forehead, gritting her teeth. Qi Huang, do you want to die? She enters the space in a flash, staring coldly at the red-clothed youngster in front of her. At this time, are you sure you want to provoke me again? Qi Huang shrinks his neck, finally restraining himself a little. Actually, it's not a big deal. Isn't it just a marriage alliance? Is there a need to make such a fuss? Little Phoenix weakly interrupts. I heard Brother Bai Xie say that if they can't make a marriage alliance, the Di Mingju can only be a lover and adulterer for a lifetime. The emperor can only be a concubine and adulterer for the rest of his life, unable to see the light of day at all. His title is not legitimate. How pitiful. What lover and adulterer? What can't see the light of day? What kind of damned adjective is Bai Xie? Mu Yin simply can't suppress the urge to beat her own son, the sword spirit. Qi Huang bursts into laughter. That lousy sword spirit finally has the appearance of a tool spirit. To actually compare the dignified Di Mingju to a lover and adulterer, haha, too funny. Qi Xiao Huang. All right, I'll tell you all right. Seven Brilliance said, if your parents had tied a marriage fate line on you when you were born, you wouldn't be able to marry them. Then, with your name, date of birth, and an object that has been stained with your aura, go to the 3 Lives Stone and make a contract with another person. Then the marriage line on your body will automatically be bound to that man. So, the marriage agreement will be formed. Mu Yin is dumbfounded. You don't need my consent? And I don't know anything about it? Qi Huang spread his hands. This is a method that parents came up with in ancient times when they wanted to reunite with their children who had been separated from them. Because once the marriage line is tied, it will guide the two parties of the marriage agreement to meet. This is also a disguised form of looking for a daughter through a son-in-law. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. In order to find me, my parents sold me. Little Phoenix clenched his fists angrily. Brother Bai Xie said that arranged marriages are not good. It's futile and stubborn. We must fight back. We must support the freedom of love. Qi Huang said nonchalantly. So what? Isn't it just a marriage certificate? When we find your parents, we can take the marriage certificate back to the 3 Lives Stone to cancel the marriage contract. I don't know what's wrong with that Di Mingju actually making such a fuss about nothing. Mu Yin sighs softly and turns to leave the space. Before she left, she gently waved her hand and completely sealed the space. I want to be alone for a while. There was no light in the pitch-black room. She lay on the bed with her clothes on, quietly looking at the dark ceiling. Thinking of Di Mingju's resolute departing figure, her nose feels slightly sour, and her eyes slowly become moist. Although he looked so relaxed in front of Seven Brilliance and Little Phoenix. However, Di Mingju's resolute departure still hurts her heart. She had thought that he was the person who understood her the most in the world. However, he didn't believe in her. Muyin slowly closes her eyes and softly whispers in a low, hoarse voice, "Bastard, if you have the ability to leave, then never come back. Worst comes to worst, this miss will go find my fiancé, and both of us will return home." Oh! Chapter 1795. Believe it or not, asking for tickets. The moonlight coming in from the window sways. Muyin suddenly feels a heavy pressure on her body. Immediately after, her hands are raised high above her head, and a fiery kiss falls down like a storm. Scalding lips and tongues, reeking of alcohol and madness, as if they want to swallow her whole. At first, Muyin still wants to struggle, but she slowly sinks into the man's familiar breath, and her resistance turns into response. After a long, long time, the red, swollen, numb lips are released. The man buries his head in the crook of her neck, his voice hoarse and broken. "Yin Yin, don't leave me, okay?" Muyin comes back to herself and gives him a firm shove, but she can't push him away. She can't help but grit her teeth. Di Mingju, at the engagement just now. Who was the first to leave who? This bastard is now acting pitiful in front of her, saying this kind of thing. Doesn't his conscience hurt? Di Mingju raises his head, his crimson eyes carrying a hint of drunkenness as he looks at her. There's a raging flame of madness burning in his eyes. Jun Muyin, even if you have an engagement, even if you love someone else in your heart, I will never let you go. Absolutely impossible. Muyin originally wants to get angry. However, the man's eyes are really too heart-wrenching, lung-splitting pain, making her whole heart tremble. She swallows back the words that are on the tip of her tongue. She reaches out a hand and gently presses it on the man's face. "Idiot, there's only one person I love in my heart. That person is called Di Mingju. When will you understand?" She repeats what Qi Huang said to Di Mingju. "It's probably my father or mother. They made an engagement for me with someone else and wanted to find me, this daughter, through that person. I will never recognize this kind of engagement. As long as I find my father or mother and take back the marriage certificate, then the engagement will naturally be dissolved." Di Mingju stares blankly for a long time. Then he says softly, "Your parents' names?" Muyin frowns. "My adoptive father told me that my father's name is Jun Shiyuan, and that he had once ascended from the Yinwu continent to the Xiuzhen continent. As for my mother, even my adoptive father doesn't know her identity and origin." Di Mingju gnashes his teeth as he repeats the three words Jun Shiyuan. "Ben Jun will go look for him." Muyin coldly stares at him. "Do you believe me now?" Di Mingju suddenly lowers his eyes and reaches out to hold her tightly in his arms. "Yin Yin, it's not that I don't believe you. I don't believe in myself. There is one thing that Muyin doesn't know. The marriage contract on the stone of predestination cannot be formed. Apart from the fact that Mayin's parents have already given her a marriage contract, there is another possibility. That is, the husband that Muyin said was already dead. Xiao Bao's biological father did not die." Di Mingju has never been able to forget that Mayan said that the one she loves is Xiao Bao's father. If that person did not die, if that person came back, what would Mayan choose? Would she go back to that man? Would Xiao Bao be closer to his biological father? As soon as he thinks of this possibility, Di Mingju can't control his crazed killing intent, as well as the heart-tearing and lung-splitting pain. No, Muyin is his wife, and Xiao Bao is his child. He will never allow anyone to take away his loved ones. In fact, Mayan already knows that the reason why Di Mingju chose to leave was because he was afraid that her rampaging divine power would hurt him and the people of Hellflame Valley. But being abandoned like that, Her heart still throbbed with pain. Azzy, Jun Shang, are you pleasantly surprised? Are you surprised? Are you stimulated? Jun Shang, you're courting death. Azzy, Jun Shang Darren, this is all fate. You'll just have to accept it. Chapter 1796. Is she kneeling on a durian? 1. Di Ming Ju. She holds the man's face and enunciates each word. In the future, you're not allowed to not believe me. You're not allowed to just leave me your back. I won't allow it. Do you hear me? Di Ming Ju presses his hand on the back of her hand, his fingers gently caressing the place where the heart mark appeared. Jun Mayan, no matter who appears in the future, no matter what happens, you are my Di Ming Ju's wife. You absolutely cannot leave me. I won't allow it. Do you hear me? Two pairs of eyes silently mingle in the darkness. Di Ming Ju slowly leans down and drops a kiss between Mayan's eyebrows. I'm sorry, Yin Yin, I shouldn't have left you. In the future, I won't do it again. Mayan coldly snorts. There's still a future? The girl's brows are picturesque like a poem. When she's slightly angry, her long eyelashes gently tremble, and the corners of her eyes are slightly curved. In those misty eyes, there seems to be a small hook hooking at Di Ming Ju's soul, making his breathing quicken. Di Ming Ju props himself up with one hand, his other hand caressing her cheek. He lowers his head and gently kisses her. It's just that, before he can seize those soft red lips again, he feels a great force coming at him from below. Mayan directly uses her spiritual power to kick him off the bed. With Di Ming Ju's cultivation, of course he wouldn't fall to the ground in a sorry state. However, the fiery, gushing tide of passion is interrupted, and Jun Shangdaren's eyes dangerously narrow. A strong plunder that wants to devour people directly flows out of his eyes. Mayan's hair stands on end from the man's gaze. However, she quickly composes herself. Her red clothes sweep past, and she lazily leans against the bed. She looks at the man in front of her with a smile that isn't a smile. Di Ming Ju, you wouldn't think that you could come back so easily after turning around and leaving, right? Di Ming Ju takes a step closer, his deep eyes unblinking as he looks at her. Then what does Yin Yin want from Ben Jun? Mayan's mouth curls up, and her eyes reveal a sly smile. She swings her hand and throws out a spirit fruit covered in thorns. In Bailey Liuin's notes, it was mentioned that in her world, if a husband offended his wife, he would be punished to kneel on a keyboard in durian. Muyin had never heard of these two things, a keyboard or a durian. But that didn't stop her from finding something to substitute from Bailey Liuin's description. For example, a washboard. Another example was the spiritual fruit called the golden Bodhi fruit, which was covered with shadow spikes. As soon as Di Ming Ju saw the golden Bodhi fruit, his eyelids twitched. This was simply preposterous. He was the polar domain's sovereign emperor. If others saw him kneeling on a washboard and kneeling on a golden Bodhi fruit, would he still have any face? Di Ming Ju's eyebrows jump as he remembers that he was almost seen by the shadow demon last time. Muyin raises the corner of her lips, her smile becoming more and more charming. What? Is Jun Shang Darren unwilling to accept the punishment? This monarch accepts. Accept. Di Ming Ju gnashes his teeth. What was face worth? How could his wife be more important? Muyin couldn't help but burst out laughing. Her peach blossom eyes were misty and her pearl-like cheeks were suffused with a rosy red. Her entire person exuded a captivating charm. She stood up from the bed and wanted to put away the golden Bodhi fruit. Seeing that Jun Shang Darren was so obedient, she wouldn't torment him. The two people's movements just now caused the lapel of Mu Yan's red dress to slightly open, revealing her fair and delicate collarbone. Those alluring lines slowly meander into the open lapel. Chapter 1797. Is this a durian? 2. The red clothes set off the skin of ice and bones of jade, white and tender like frost, creamy like jade. Di Ming Ju's eyes suddenly deepen. His Adam's apple silently rolls up and down. In the depths of his eyes, there's a blazing flame that can't be suppressed. Mine just got up, but a hot palm suddenly clasps her wrist. Then, the world spins before her eyes, and her whole body is thrown onto the bed. The tall and heavy body presses down, and both hands are pressed on top of her head again. The man's eyes firmly hold her, like he's staring at his proudest prey, wishing he could immediately swallow her into his belly. Mayan's whole body suddenly tenses up, her throat dry. Mingju, what are you doing? In any case, I'm going to be punished. The man's voice is hoarse and hot, low and dangerous. Ben Jun, I'll collect the interest first. Oh, Mingju, call Ben Jun's name. Yin Yin. Say it again. A bastard. Say it again. Yin Yu. Jun Mayan, I love you. You must always remember, you belong to me. Xiao Bao's eyes are red and a little swollen. Early in the morning, he stands outside Mayan's room, hesitating to go in. The fat rabbit nestles in his arms, gently licking his hand, as if to comfort him. Bai Xie sighs in his mind. There's no justice in this ancient arranged marriage system. Not only can they arrange a marriage, but they also don't need to show up in person to get the marriage certificate. It's simply breaking up the fated people. The point is, his thick golden thigh is also gone. It's simply too sad, okay. Xiao Bao's little face tightens, panting with anger. I don't want to talk to Daddy anymore. Daddy is a big scoundrel. He left Xiao Bao and Mommy. As he speaks, his eyes redden again. His heart really feels extremely sad, extremely wronged. He thought that he would finally have a complete family with Daddy and Mommy. But it turns out that it's just a dream. Did his father not want him anymore? Doesn't want Mommy anymore? Bai Xie and the fat rabbit were also affected by Xiao Bao's emotions. They also became depressed. At this moment, the door creaked. Mu Yan's somewhat lazy and hoarse voice came from inside the house. Xiao Bao, come in. Hearing Mu Yan's voice, Xiao Bao's eyes immediately lit up, and he ran in. Mother, don't be sad. Before he could finish, his neck suddenly twisted 90 degrees. He looked at the corner of the house. Dash! Roar! Oh my God! When he saw this scene, even little Bao's face that had always been icy cold was shocked to the point it was on the verge of warping. His little mouth was wide open, and his blue eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. After a long time, Xiao Bao stiffly turns around to look at Mayan. He was so shocked that his soul almost flew out of his body. Little Treasure could even hear the cracking sounds coming from his neck. Mother! A trace of embarrassment flits across Mu Yan's face. She originally didn't want to torment Mingju. In the end, this man was like a mad beast on the bed last night, torturing her between life and death. Mu Yan immediately threw her reluctance to feed the dog. The point is, when this bastard went to kneel on the golden Bodhi fruit, Mu Yan was worried that the barbs on the golden Bodhi fruit would hurt Mingju, so she couldn't help but go over to take a look. In the end, this shameless man pulled her into his arms, and with a kneeling position, he fiercely kisses her. Chapter 1798. Is he kneeling on a durian? 3 inches the end, he whispers in her ear in a low voice. On the golden Bodhi fruit, it's not bad. Yin, next time should we try your ass. Mingju, you bastard, don't you have any shame? Mayan blushes and kicks the man away, gritting her teeth. If you like it so much, then kneel on the golden Bodhi fruit until the end of time. At this time, she hears Xiao Bao's sad voice outside the room. Facing Xiao Bao's shocked expression, Mayan still hasn't thought of how to answer. The Bixia sword buzzed as it flew out. It laughed and said, a little master, what else is there to ask? It's obvious that the husband and wife had a fight and reconciled. Oh my, so there are durians in this era, huh? Hey, is this a durian? Bai Xie is laughing heartily. Mingju glances at him, and the laughter stops abruptly. Bai Xie shivers and murmurs. How can someone kneel on a durian with the aura of a dragon throne? Are you going to let us lowly commoners live? Mine can't help but look at the Bixia sword in surprise. Bai Xie actually knows about durians. and many of the things he said are very similar to the notes left by Bailey Luine. Is Bai Xie not a real sword spirit, but from the same world as Bailey Luine? When the people of the Xiaoyao sect and the Netherfire army see Di Ming Ju coming out of Mayan's room, they are shocked. But soon, the shock turns into joy. It's great that Mayan and Di Ming Ju are back together. Yesterday, Di Ming Ju's terrifying aura made the people of the Xiaoyao sect and the Netherfire army unable to sleep well. They were afraid that he would hurt Mayan because of his anger. Now that they saw that they were more intimate than before, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, the happiest among them are Han Yi and Ying Mei. They were driven out of the Netherfire Valley together with Xing Lang. They can only guard outside the valley anxiously, not daring to barge in. No one knows Di Ming Ju's feelings for Mayan better than them. If the two of them were to break off, if Miss June really had a husband, they did not dare to imagine what Jun Shang would do. Kill the adulterer? Or to imprison Miss June forever? In the end, two people who love each other turn against each other? In short, no matter what the result was, it was not what they wanted to see. Now that he sees that Di Ming Ju and Mayan have reconciled after just one night, Han Yi cries out in joy on the spot. The rims of Ying Mei's eyes are also a little red. Among Di Ming Ju's subordinates, she has the deepest feelings for Mu Yin. If Mayan and Di Ming Ju were to really break their relationship, the torment in her heart would simply be worse than being flayed alive. Only Xing Lang was still somewhat indignant that Mayan was already engaged. But after Bai Xie explained the possible origin of this marriage, Lin Fan was stunned. Only then did Xing Lang restrain his emotions. With a sour face, he says, Jun Mayan, is that father of yours blind? Is there any man more outstanding than Jun Shang in this world? He actually booked you to someone else. What broken pretty boy could it be that he can even be mentioned in the same breath as our Jun Shang? What an ignorant, stupid idiot. Mayan doesn't feel the slightest bit of psychological burden towards her father, whom she has never met, being scolded. She also feels very irritable. Okay, what kind of father is this? Inexplicably arranging a marriage for her, and she doesn't even know who that man is. Chapter 1799. You are not my father. I do not know you. If he wanted to find her, couldn't he find a more normal way? Han Yi coughs lightly, restraining himself from laughing. Jun Shang. Since Miss Jun's engagement was established on the Three Lives Stone, that means that Miss Jun's father is bound to be in the Xiuxin continent. Even Di Ming Ju is unable to take the Real Stone of 3 Lives from the Xiuxin continent. The only thing he could bring to the Cultivation continent was a fragment of the 3 Lives Stone, the Fate Stone. However, with the Fate-determining stone, it was impossible to obtain the recognition of the Heavenly Tao and establish a marriage contract without going through the person themselves. Only the marriage line and the 8 characters of the 8 trigrams could be used to obtain the recognition of the Heavenly Tao. Therefore, it can be inferred that there is a 90% chance that Mayan's biological father is in the Xiuxin continent. Han Yi and Xing Lang are immediately eager to give it a try. Jun Shang, miss, rest assured, with our Polar Domain's forces, we'll definitely be able to find that blind man, him, Miss Jun's father. Even the man who dared to steal their Jun Shang's wife. Once I find him, I must tear that pretty boy into pieces. This shocking change finally came to an end in a way that everyone was happy with. However, there was only one person who kept a straight face and did not smile at all. Di Ming Ju's unperturbed expression, which has always been in the grasp of heaven and earth, finally shows a crack. He casts a pleading look towards Mayan. Ever since Xiao Bao saw Di Ming Ju in Mayan's room, apart from the initial shock, he never paid attention to him again. He didn't even give him a look. On this point, Mu Yin is also powerless to help. Although Xiao Bao was only 5 years old, he had always been a very precocious child. Ever since they were still in the jungle, when mother and son depended on each other, this little boy had always been the one taking care of her. Perhaps it was because he had experienced too much when he was in her womb. Therefore, Xiaobao had always been very insecure. In fact, apart from her, Xiaobao couldn't truly open his heart to anyone else. Di Ming Ju is the second. But now, because of his resolute departing figure, Xiao Bao closed the door to his heart that had been wide open. Di Mingju frowns. He suddenly steps forward in large strides and picks Xiao Bao up. Xiao Bao's whole body soars into the air. At first, he's startled, but when he finds out that the one picking him up is Di Mingju, he immediately kicks his short legs and hands, shouting, "Scoundrel, let me go!" Di Mingju doesn't care about what he's saying. He teleports and hugs Mayan, disappearing on the spot. By the time Xiao Bao comes back to his senses, he discovers that Di Mingju has unexpectedly brought him and his mother to the top of a mountain. This was probably the highest peak in the Danyang mountain range. There was a chill in the air. Looking down from here, one could see the endless mountains and rivers, as well as the vast wood-fern sea. Beneath his feet were towering green mountains, yellow soil, and rocks, as well as misty white clouds. Little Treasure was a little stunned. He had never seen such a scene in his life. It wasn't beautiful or dreamy, but it was magnificent. It was as if it could wash away all the passion in his chest. The mountains of the polar domain are 100 times higher than here. The scenery of the polar domain is also 100 times more beautiful than here. Di Mingju's deep and magnetic voice enters her ears. Xiao Bao's ears twitch, but he strives to keep his little face taut, not even looking at him. "Jun Machin, I'm talking to you." Di Mingju lowers his voice. Xiao Bao purses his lips, his cheeks slightly bulging. "You're not my father, I don't know you, and I'm not going to talk to you." Di Mingju lowers his head, looking down at him from above. His eyes carry the fury of a storm. "If I'm not your father, then who do you want to recognize as your father?" Chapter 1800. "You're not my father, I don't know you too." Being reprimanded by Di Mingju like this, the rims of Xiao Bao's eyes turn red. The grievances that have been accumulating for 2 days pour out all at once. But he firmly clenches his teeth, not letting himself show weakness and not letting himself cry. Daddy won't abandon Yangqin and Xiao Bao. Daddy won't abandon Xiao Bao. And even more, he won't abandon Yangqin. "You're a bad person. You're not my daddy." Despite his desperate efforts to hold back, the tears still fall from his eyes. Xiao Bao's entire little body is twitching from grievance. His 2 watery blue eyes are swollen like walnuts. Mayan's heart aches. She wants to step forward, but in the end, she still shrinks her footsteps and quietly watches from the side. Xiao Bao cries and wipes his tears. However, the more tears he wipes, the harder it is to suppress the grievances in his heart. Just when he's so sad that he wants to throw himself into his mother's arms and cry, a big hand suddenly presses on his head, gently rubbing it. Then, he hears his father's usually cold and dignified voice, carrying a trace of depression and lack of confidence. "It's not that Daddy doesn't want you and Yangqin. Daddy is just afraid." "Afraid?" Xiao Bao stares blankly, and he can't help but raise his head, only to find that the tall, unreachable man has crouched down in front of him. The big hand is still softly pressing on the back of his head. Xiao Bao has never seen Di Mingju show such a gentle, tolerant, and apologetic look towards him. For a moment, he's somewhat dazed, and he can't help but blurt out, "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that your Yangqin will marry another man." After a pause, Di Mingju continues in a low, husky voice, "And afraid that Xiao Bao will think that it's better to let someone else be your father." "That won't happen." Xiao Bao doesn't even think about it before shouting, "Daddy is the best in the world. There's no one better than Daddy." For a moment, Di Mingju feels a warm current welling up inside his body. It makes his nose sour, and his eyes dry up. He really likes this child. It's not just because of Mayan, but Di Mingju's voice becomes even softer, so soft that even Xiao Bao can't hear it. "If one day your biological father appears, will Xiao Bao choose him and not father?" Di Mingju's expression is too sorrowful and mournful, making Xiao Bao's ignorant heart tighten all at once. All of a sudden, he doesn't want to think about anything and throws himself into Di Mingju's arms, tightly hugging his neck. "Daddy is Daddy. There's no biological father. Xiao Bao only wants Daddy." Mu Yin, who was at the side, looked at the scene of the father and son hugging each other. Her eyes were filled with tears, but the corners of her mouth hooked up into a warm smile. Deming-ju stands up, withdrawing his hand from Xiao Bao's head. His loss of composure just now made him feel a little embarrassed and annoyed. Xiao Bao is regretting why his father doesn't continue to stroke his head, just like his mother. Then she heard the man's dignified voice, "No matter what, I'm your father." In the future, even if he lost his temper, he was not allowed to say that he didn't want his father anymore. Otherwise, I'll beat your ass until it blossoms. Do you hear me? Xiao Bao purses his lips and throws himself into Mayan's arms. He complains loudly, "Nyangqin, Daddy is bad. Daddy wants to hit Xiao Bao. We'll ignore him." Mayan bursts into laughter. She picks up the little plump boy who already has some weight and says with a smile, "All right, we'll ignore him." Xiao Bao's brows immediately fly up. That pair of blue eyes that are still swollen are sparkling, like they're bearing the stars of a summer night. Chapter 1801. Ling Yuxing's Nightmare 1. However, before he could wrap his hand around Mayan's neck, she was then lifted up by the back of the collar. "You're such an adult, and you still want Yanqing to carry you? Fly back by yourself." After that, an invisible flying sword appeared under his feet. Deming-ju pulls Mayan into his arms, and together they step on the flying sword. Completely ignoring the shocked and hurt look in his son's eyes, he flew out with a whoosh. However, compared to his teleportation just now, he was obviously flying on his sword leisurely this time. "Bad daddy, give my mother back to me." Xiao Bao angrily stomped his feet, stepped on by Xie, and followed behind. His little face was filled with anger. Bastard father, Xiao Bao doesn't need to pay attention to him for 3 days. He needs to quickly become stronger and snatch his mother away from his father. Mayan nestles in Deming-ju's arms, raising her head to look at the man's grave and stern face. The smile on her face becomes more and more brilliant. "Deming-ju, are you feeling embarrassed for revealing your true feelings to Xiao Bao?" Deming-ju snorts. Ben Jun is merely educating his son. Mayan humphed, stubborn. Deming-ju lowers his head and directly seals her lips, a muffled voice echoing between their lips and teeth. Whether Ben Jun's mouth is hard or not, isn't Yin Yin the clearest? "Bastard! Rogue!" Mu Yin ruthlessly elbowed him with a backhand. Then, she turned her head to take a look. Seeing that Xiao Bao's Bixia sword had caught up with her, she heaved a sigh of relief. The two flying swords whistled through the air one after the other, leaving a trail of white light. From time to time, there would be sounds of cursing and laughter. Time was peaceful, and the world was stable. This should be the case. Sangyin City. Ling Yuxing came out of the treasure pill pavilion alone with a satisfied expression on his face. The time for the 3 teams that had left the Azure Blue Realm to go to the Purple Cloud Realm's Dragon Soar Academy to participate in the Deer Cry Banquet was getting closer and closer. During this period of time, Ling Yuxing felt that his domain had reached a critical point. He had a feeling that once he awakened his domain, he would reach a completely different realm. Today, he came to the Pearl Pill Pavilion mainly to change his weapon. Ling Yuxing usually used the most ordinary needles in battle, as well as ordinary threads mixed with obsidian crystals. The obsidian crystal made the thread more tenacious and could bind up cultivators below the 5th level of Jindan. However, cultivators at the 5th level of the Golden Core realm and above could easily break his threads. Therefore, Ling Yuxing asked for obsidian crystals from his junior sister and found a evil Taifa tree. He gave it to the master of the True Pill Pavilion to forge his new weapon. The bark of the demonic Taifa tree could be peeled off with a special knife, mixed with obsidian crystals, and refined into an extremely tough demon binding silk. As for the evil Taifa tree, its leaves were needle-shaped and were harder than iron or stone. Adding the demon-absorbing needles made from black crystals, it was almost invincible for anyone below the peak of Gold Core Realm. These 2 kinds of needles and thread were extremely difficult to make. Ling Yuxing had already gone in and out of the Pill Treasure Pavilion several times, destroying several evil Taifa trees and several pieces of black dazzling crystals. This time he finally succeeded, Just as Ling Yuxing put away the demon-absorbing needles and demon-binding silk, he heard a vulgar voice behind him. Mingzhu said that you were in the Starry School, but I didn't believe it at first. I didn't think that you would really dare to come back. Ha, Ling Yuxing, do you miss the taste of me? Ling Yuxing's body suddenly trembled, and his eyes suddenly turned blood red. Chapter 1802. Ling Yuxing's Nightmare 2. He would never forget this voice for the rest of his life. Wei Yongjin. Ling Yuxing turned around slowly. A shifty-eyed, greasy face entered his eyes. His stomach churned, and his face paled. The feeling of disgust, hatred, and disgust stirred up all the spiritual power in his body, almost exploding. This person, this voice, this face, he would never forget it. At that time, Ouyang Mingzhu had framed him. Due to a freak combination of factors, he and Ouyang Qing had a wild night together. Ling Yuxing still remembered the heat and pain of that night. But thinking that the person on top of him was the man he had silently loved for so many years, the sweetness of sorrow in his heart washed away the pain in his body. But when he woke up, Ouyang Qing angrily told him to get lost. The disgust and pain in her eyes made Ling Yuxing's heart sink. He finally realized that his love for Ouyang Qing was a kind of humiliation, an existence that made him feel disgusted. Ling Yuxing ignored the pain and exhaustion in his body and left dejectedly. However, halfway there, he was caught by someone. His speed was originally very fast. Normal cultivators in the fasting realm could not catch up to him at all. Moreover, before that night, Ouyang Qing had always doted on him and protected him like an eyeball. The Ouyang family leader, Ouyang Xiangdong, had been cultivating in seclusion many years ago and did not go out often. Thus, Ouyang Qing, the young master, was often in charge of everything in the Ouyang family. But Ouyang Qing, who held real power, had more guards by Ling Yuxing's side than she had herself. But it was that night. Ling Yuxing's body and soul were riddled with holes. The guards of the Ouyang family saw Ouyang Qing and Ling Yuxing arguing and hesitated to chase after him to protect him. It was such a freak combination of factors that caused Ling Yuxing to fall into someone else's hands. That person was Wei Yongjin. Wei Yongjin's cultivation had only reached the 7th level of fasting, and he could not advance further. But he had Wei Kaizhu, his aunt who had married into the Ouyang family, as the mistress. He also had Wei Tianming, his father who had power in the Starry School, supporting him. Thus, he had always lived lawlessly. He was not lustful, did not like treasures, but he had an extremely disgusting hobby. Torturing people. Insanely torturing people. The more painful and miserable the cries of the people in his hands were, the happier Wei Yongjin laughed. In those years, countless people had been tortured by Wei Yongjin to the point where they died with hatred. And it was precisely because Ouyang Mingzhu knew that Wei Yongjin was such a pervert that she specifically asked Wei Yongjin to wait outside the Ouyang house. After so many years, Ling Yuxing was still unwilling to recall the days when he fell into Wei Yongjin's hands. He was stripped naked, hung up, and lashed with a whip dipped in salt water. He was pierced by a needle from the slender, beautiful fingertips. Not a single drop of blood flowed out, but he was in so much pain that he wished he could die immediately. Every time, Wei Yongjin's disgusting and sticky voice would giggle in his ear. Look, your body is still so perfect. I didn't even cripple your tendons, bones, or dantian. Ha! Only such a perfect body will be more pleasing to the eye when it's in pain. Ling Yuxing's memories of that period were already blurred. He had forgotten how long he had been tortured and what kind of torture he had endured. Chapter 1803. He only knew that when the door to the cell opened and sunlight shone on Ouyang Xiangdong's tall body, he thought he had been saved. In fact, before that incident, he rarely saw Ouyang Xiangdong. But Ling Yuxing grew up in the Ouyang family, and his father was Ouyang Xiangdong's butler. So Ouyang Xiangdong had always been very kind to him. Ouyang Xiangdong rescued him from that hell-like cage and treated him kindly. He told him to recuperate and said that he would definitely seek justice for him. Ling Yuxing didn't see Ouyang Qing at that time. He wanted to ask, but he didn't dare. He was afraid that Ouyang Qing deliberately avoided him because she hated him. That night, Ling Yuxing convulsed in pain in his room, tears streaming down his face. Wei Yongjin didn't break his meridians or destroy his dantian, but he used poison needles to stab into every inch of his meridians and dantian. The poison wasn't fatal, but it would magnify the pain countless times. Ling Yuxing fainted again and again, only to be woken up again and again by cold water. Even though he was out of hell, the pain still remained in his body and his soul. In a daze from the pain, Ling Yuxing opened his eyes and saw his mother crying at the head of the bed. There were also his father and brother standing next to her. Seeing his family, Ling Yuxing cried tears of joy. However, what greeted him was his father's angry scolding. How disgusting and intolerable was it for a man to like another man? He was the son of the Ling family, a dignified man. How could he do such a dirty thing that disgraced the Ling family? If he had any self-awareness, he should immediately get out of the Ouyang family and the Ling family, lest the two families lose their last bit of face. Although his mother and brother didn't say anything, they turned their heads indifferently and didn't look him in the eye. Ling Yuxing felt like he was struck by lightning. The last bit of hope and warmth in his heart disappeared at that moment. He stumbled out of the Ouyang family, but saw Ouyang Mingzhu standing at the door sneering at him. She mocked him for being a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. He was just a lowly servant's son, yet he dared to covet her brother. Unfortunately, Ouyang Qing hated him to the extreme. In order to avoid him, she didn't even want to return to the Ouyang clan. Ling Yuxing did not know how he left the Ouyang family and how he fainted outside. When he woke up, he had already been arranged to stay in a secluded courtyard. The one who saved him was still the Ouyang clan's patriarch, Ouyang Qing's father, Ouyang Xiandong. Ouyang Xiandong replied, "I know what happened between you and Qing. No matter what, I will make him give you an explanation. Little Sheng, you should stay here and recuperate from your injuries first." At this moment, Ouyang Xiandong was Ling Yuxing's last life-saving straw. He was grateful to Ouyang Xiandong for saving him from hell, and even more grateful that Ouyang Xiandong did not hate his feelings for Ouyang Qing. However, Ling Yuxing soon realized that something was wrong. One night, after taking the medicine, he fell into a deep sleep. In the latter half of the night, he was awakened by the torment of the remaining words. Then, he inadvertently overheard Ouyang Xiandong's conversation. That's right, it was a conversation. When will I be able to use Ling Yuxing's talent for my own? It's another day of hard work writing. Is it worth everyone throwing a monthly ticket to encourage me? I've made myself so awesome. Hands on your ways for a while. Thank you for your gifts. Momo, Heart Torture, Memory, No Nickname 13708, Qin Yushang Shui, A Peaceful Life, Cuckoo, Time Will Be Missed, Chijio AO, Two Bosses with 10,000 Coins, 4990645563, Yuxing GAI. End of chapter. Chapter 1804. What's the hurry? His body is still too weak. If we forcefully dig out his talent, if his body can't bear it and explode along with his innate spiritual root, wouldn't the loss outweigh the gain? But this bastard, as a man, actually has such dirty thoughts towards my son. I really can't wait a moment longer. I can't wait to tear his body into pieces. Ha. Didn't you already know? He's not the only one with dirty thoughts. Before the conversation ended, Ouyang Xiandong's face suddenly changed, looking in the direction of Ling Yuxing. Who's there? Ling Yuxing didn't think and ran wildly. One fled, one chased, and finally came to the famous Heaven's End Cliff of Cloud-Piercing City. Under the Heaven's End Cliff was the Ghost Fire Swamp. The air above the Ghost Fire Swamp was filled with extremely high temperature all year round. As long as a person touched it, it would be difficult to breathe, and the spiritual power in the body would feel like it was burning, painful. The swamp of the Ghost Fire Swamp was extremely easy to sink into. Generally, the cultivators who jumped down from the Heaven's End Cliff even if they were at the gold core stage, would not survive more than 10 breaths. Ouyang Xiangdong patiently guided Ling Yuxing. Don't you want to see Qing again? Don't worry. As long as you go back with me, I promise I will make Qing take responsibility for you. Ling Yuxing looked at the man who was smiling kindly, but his eyes were filled with greed and revealed a smile for the first time in a long time. His long hair was scattered, and his feet were bare. His feet and snow-white clothes were already stained with blood and dirty. But his smile was brighter and purer than the moonlight. However, there was no longer the warmth and happiness of the past, only a piece of coldness. If you're willing, please tell Ouyang Qing for me. Just say. Startled, Ling Yuxing suddenly stopped talking, revealing a self-deprecating smile. No need to tell him. I have nothing to say between him and me. From now on, I will devour. We will never meet again. Ouyang Qing, may your future be bright, but in that future, you will not be under my control. Ouyang Xiangdong's face changed and wanted to rush forward. But Ling Yuxing had already jumped down the Heaven's End cliff. Look at how pale his face is. Wei Yongjin licked his lips. When he recalled how Ling Yuxing's body had contorted and trembled in pain, and how he had howled in pain, he was so excited that he almost drooled. Do you finally remember how I made you feel? I regretted it for a long time when you were taken away by the Ouyang family's master. The people we've found in the past 2 years aren't as interesting as you. But now it's great. I finally found you again. While speaking, Wei Yongjin waved his hand, and a dozen Peak Enidia realm practitioners immediately surrounded Ling Yuxing. Before he came, he was prepared. Cousin said that this Ling Yuxing was currently at the peak of Enidia, but his strength was much stronger than an ordinary peak of Enidia. That was why he had brought over a dozen Peak Enidia realm guards from the Wei clan. This way, he would be able to catch his prey again. Ling Yuxing's trembling body slowly calmed down. He raised his head, revealing a handsome face. His face was pale as snow, and his lips were unnaturally red. His eyes were deep. Where do you want to take me? Chapter 1805. When Wei Yongjin heard what he said, he took the initiative to devour. He wanted to leave with her. Instantly, his face flushed with excitement. Good. I knew you would never forget me. Ha ha ha, brother will take you back to the Wei family. In the basement of the Wei family, I have prepared a prison room 100 times better than the original one. At that time in the Ouyang family, although my aunt loved me, I couldn't do whatever I wanted. I haven't had time to use many means. This time, I will make you satisfied. Huh? Ling Yuxing raised one side of his mouth and chuckled. Well, shall we go now? Let's go now. Brother, I can't wait. Wei Yongjin didn't lose his head. He was afraid that Ling Yuxing's words were just an expedient measure, so he immediately let the guards around him surround him. Surrounded by more than a dozen tall and strong men, the thin young man looked so weak and pitiful. On the street of Songyan City, many people's eyes were looking at this side. They cast a pitiful look at the thin boy with his head down. Wei Yongjin became more and more complacent and began to think about how to torture Ling Yuxing when he took him to the prison room, and how to make him cry for mercy 100 times more miserable than before. However, he did not find that the boy behind him occasionally raised his eyes. The bottom of his eyes was dark, but there was a bloody red light, like a Shura climbing up from the depths of hell. That year, after he fell off the Heaven's End cliff, before his body completely sank into the ghost fire swamp, he was rescued by his master Shurqing, who happened to pass by, and brought back to the Xiaoyao sect. For a long period of time after that, he could not even remember who he was and forgot why he had fallen into the ghost fire swamp where there was no chance of survival. He just began to wear women's clothes inexplicably. Subconsciously, he felt that if he was a woman, maybe all the tragedies would not have happened. Later, he slowly recovered his memory, remembered who he was, and the past and break with Ouyang Qing. However, he deliberately forgot the scene of being tortured by Wei Yongjin, being abandoned by his parents and brother, and being calculated by Ouyang Xiangdong. So for so many years, he had no hatred, no idea of revenge, only endless disgust for himself. His love and hate for Ouyang Qing were intertwined. Only now, when he saw Wei Yongjin again, did he know that hatred, that pain, that hellish torture had never disappeared. It was just that he was deceiving himself and others to hide it. The moment he saw the light of day, it would burn his soul, along with his hatred, until there was nothing left. Ouyang Qing went to the Alcade branch as usual, but she couldn't find Ling Yuxing even after looking around. The people of the Xiaoyao sect were already used to seeing him. Luo Yu even teased him with a smile. Senior brother Ouyang, you've come to the Alcade branch to be a husband-gazing stone again. Ouyang Qing's expression was calm, as he replied with an N shamelessly. On the contrary, it made Luo Yu, who was teasing him, speechless. However, on this day, Ling Yuxing still hadn't returned even after waiting until nightfall. This time, even Mu Yin and the others could not sit still. Yun Ruhan said worriedly, Little Five has always been the most obedient of all the people. He knows that we'll be worried, but he definitely won't come back without telling us. Mu Yin said directly, I'll go to the Danyang mountain range to look for it. Chapter 1806. In fact, Mu Yin wanted to use myriad plants resonating and Summerbug's language of ice to let the nearby spirit plants and insects help her find Ling Yuxing's whereabouts. However, the result was still disappointing. This meant that Ling Yuxing was no longer near the Alcade institution. Ouyang Qing's face was ashen, his expression savage, his eyes filled with hatred. He suddenly soared up, the flying sword under his feet moving as fast as lightning towards the direction of Alioth branch. During this period of time, Ouyang Qing, with her Jidon cultivation level, had actually learned to fly on a sword. Mu Yin frowns. Perhaps Fifth Senior Brother's disappearance was related to his past, the Ouyang family, and even the Wei family. She recalled the news that Ouyang Mingzhu was actually Wei Mingzhu. Mind doesn't even think about it, and immediately follows him. The moment Ouyang Qing entered the Alioth branch courtyard, someone immediately noticed him. Senior Brother Ouyang, it's Senior Brother Ouyang. Senior Brother Ouyang, why are you here? Hearing everyone's call, Wei Mingzhu rushed out excitedly. Her eyes lit up and she was about to throw herself into Ouyang Qing's arms. Big brother, you finally came to see me. Her body had yet to touch Ouyang Qing's clothes. However, his throat was suddenly clutched by a hand. Ouyang Qing clenched her fists. Tell me, what did you do to Sheng? Wei Mingzhu's throat was being strangled. She felt a burning pain on her neck, and her breathing seemed to be cut off. Her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She opened her mouth with difficulty, and a gurgling sound came from her throat. Brother, spare me. Ouyang Qing violently flung her to the ground. Wei Mingzhu's head directly hit the corner of her master's bed. Blood immediately flowed from her head, and she let out a painful howl. Ouyang Qing looked at her face covered in blood and crying bitterly, but there was no trace of pity in her eyes, only deep hatred and disgust. Where is Xiaosheng? What did you do to him? Wei Mingzhu covered the bleeding wound. The dizziness only subsided after a while. She wailed, Brother, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me? I'm your little sister. Where's Xiaosheng? I haven't seen him at all these days. Could it be that Ling Yuxing disappeared? But what does that have to do with me? Maybe he left for fun. Before Wei Mingzhu could finish her sentence, Ouyang Qing raised her foot and stomped on her throat. Her eyes were bloodshot as she gritted her teeth and said, I'll ask you again, where is Xiaosheng? If you don't say it, don't blame me for being impolite. Wei Mingzhu felt the pain coming from her throat and heard a cracking sound coming from her throat. She was scared out of her wits, and her body trembled like a sieve. I don't know, I really don't know. This is Alioth Academy. You can't kill me, otherwise you will be punished as well. What's more, I'm your only sister. Ouyang Qing sneered, Sister? Wei Mingzhu, do you really think that I don't have proof that you are Wei Tianming's bastard child? Wei Mingzhu shuddered. At this time, there were more and more Alioth branch cultivators surrounding her. Hearing Ouyang Qing's resolute and decisive words, everyone looked at Wei Mingzhu with even more contempt and disgust. Wei Mingzhu screamed, "No, I am not Wei Tianming's daughter. I'm the young lady of the Ouyang family. I am—" Chapter 1807. Ouyang Qing lifted his foot and stomped hard on her chest. With a cracking sound, Wei Mingzhu's ribs broke, and she screamed like a pig being slaughtered. This scene caused the students of the Aliyah school to shudder, and all took a few steps back. His hands were clenched into fists. His nails dug deep into his palms, and blood dripped from the gaps between his fingers. Back then, because you were my sister, I believed your nonsense. I thought Xiaoxing left because he was really disappointed in me. Wei Mingzhu, what did you do to Xiaoxing back then? What do you want to do to him now? He was such a failure of a man. He had hurt the person he loved, causing him to be abused and almost killed, but he didn't know anything. Only when he reunited with Ling Yuxing did he slowly realize just what kind of terrifying things had happened to Ling Yuxing back then. The people who had hurt Xiaoxing were his father, his uncle, and the sister he thought he was. And the person who had hurt Xiaoxing the most was himself. When Ouyang Qing found out that Ling Yuxing had jumped off the Duantian cliff and narrowly escaped death, his heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. He had stood outside the Alcade school all those nights, watching the light in Ling Yuxing's room turn on and off, tears streaming down his face. How he wanted to rush into that room, take his beloved into his arms, and confess his sins to her. But he didn't dare. Before he could avenge Xiaoxing and get justice, he did not have the right to do so. Ouyang Qing looked down at Wei Mingzhu coldly. I'll count to 3. If you don't tell me where Xiaoxing is, I'll kill you. Wei Mingzhu's eyes widened in fear, and she shook her head with tears streaming down her face. Brother, don't joke around. You can't kill people. This is the school. You'll be expelled. You're the young master of the Ouyang clan. How can you leave a stain on your reputation for a man for Ling Yuxing? Ha, brother, you won't do that, right? Ouyang Qing heard this and laughed softly. He had a handsome face, sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes, and he had an air of righteousness around him. But when he smiled, his eyes were dripping with blood, and he looked like a wild beast that had long since gone mad. For Xiaoxing's sake, let alone killing you, Wei Mingzhu, I will not hesitate even if the entire Wei family disappears from this world. With that, he raised his hand, and a sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Without the slightest hesitation, he fiercely stabbed at Wei Mingzhu's chest. No! I'll talk. Ling Yuxing was in the Wei family. He's in Wei Yongjin's hands. Don't kill me. Wei Mingzhu screamed and wailed madly, her legs kicking with all her might. Not long after, a puddle of yellow liquid flowed out from between her legs, emitting a foul stench. The students of the Aliyah branch vomited from the smell and could only retreat a few more steps. Ouyang Qing withdrew the sword that had pierced through Wei Mingzhu's chest and said hoarsely, Wei Yongjin. Wei Mingzhu looked at the sword in her chest and panted. It's my cousin Wei Yongjin. He took Ling Yuxing away. She suddenly laughed maniacally, her loose hair shaking uncontrollably. Brother, you still don't know. Back then, when Ling Yuxing left the Ouyang clan, he fell into Wei Yongjin's hands. Wei Yongjin's methods of torture are not something ordinary people can endure. Chapter 1808. That's why Ling Yuxing went crazy. Even though that bitch survived, he became neither a man nor a woman. This time he's fallen into Wei Yongjin's hands once more. What do you think that bitch, Ling Yuxing, will become? Ouyang Qing's body trembled uncontrollably. He only knew that Ling Yuxing had been imprisoned back then, and that the Wei family was involved in it. However, he did not know that the one who imprisoned and injured Ling Yuxing was actually Wei Yongjin. When the Aliyah branch students heard Wei Mingzhu's malicious words and curses, they were disgusted by her to the extreme. Kill her! Kill this evil woman! That's right, senior brother Ouyang. If you don't dare to make a move, we'll do it. Damn it. At most, I'll be expelled from the academy. I'll go all out. He actually dared to harm a member of the Carefree Squad. I won't tolerate it even if I die. Wei Mingzhu's laughter sounded as if someone had squeezed her throat. His hysterical madness turned into terror once again. Ouyang Qing's eyes were bloodshot, but his expression was extremely calm. He held the sword in his hand and walked towards Wei Mingzhu step by step. No, brother, you can't kill me. You won't kill me, right? I may not be your sister, but I love you. Ever since I found out that I wasn't the daughter of the Ouyang family, ever since I could remember, I've only had you in my heart. Brother, in this world, there's no one who loves you more than me. How can you kill me? However, Ouyang Qing acted as if she did not hear her words at all, and the sword in her hand suddenly stabbed out. However, just as the sword was delivered halfway, the sound of a zither resounded in the classroom. Following that, the sound blade flew out, causing Ouyang Qing's sword tip to deviate by an inch, stabbing into Wei Mingzhu's shoulder. Despite the excruciating pain in her shoulder, Wei Mingzhu still looked at the reinforcements at the door with wild joy. However, when she saw who it was, the joy on her face suddenly turned into fear. Holding the Tian Qin in her hand, Mine walks in step by step, the corners of her mouth hooking up into an eerie smile. Wei Mingzhu, do you want to die a quick death? You still have to ask my fifth senior brother if he agrees. Wei Mingzhu opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but the sound of Mayan zither had already been heard. The music was imbued with spiritual qi. It condensed above Wei Mingzhu's head and suddenly turned into a cage, binding Wei Mingzhu tightly. Drawing prison a level 5 skill. It could trap those with low cultivation in a cage made of music, making them unable to struggle or escape. After Mu Yin appeared, Ouyang Qing did not stop for a moment and directly rushed to the Wei clan. In fact, during this period of time, he had grasped the power of the Ouyang family in his hands, completely overthrowing his father, Ouyang Xiandong, and stepmother, Wei Kaiju, who had been in seclusion all year round. On the other hand, he used the Ouyang family's secret forces to continuously weaken the Wei family. Because of Wei Tianming's death, the Wei family began to decline. In addition to Ouyang Qing's suppression, the current Wei clan was already on the verge of collapse. However, no matter how weakened they were, the Wei family was still a second-rate family. Wei Tiangang, the ancestor of the Wei clan, who had been in seclusion for many years, was at the peak of the Golden Core realm. When Ling Yuxing and the others were fighting the Tian family, they were also able to deal with Tian Haiba's peak Golden Core stage slaughter puppets. But there was a world of difference in strength between peak Golden Core realm and peak Golden Core realm. In the end, puppets were puppets. They had no fighting awareness, no fighting skills. Chapter 1809. Even if they were both at the peak of the Golden Core realm, a true cultivator would be at least 3 to 5 times stronger than a puppet. With Ling Yuxing's strength, it would be difficult for him to deal with Wei Tiangang. Furthermore, the Wei clan had so many death warriors. There was no lack of Golden Core cultivators. Ouyang Qing could not imagine what would happen to Ling Yuxing if he was brought back to the Wei clan. If he were to fall into the hands of that bastard Wei Yongjin once more. Thinking about this, Ouyang Qing's eyes turned red, and his eyes were filled with a crazed, killing intent. His Xiaosheng. If anyone dared to touch his Xiaosheng again, he would make sure that bastard was buried with him. However, when Ouyang Qing landed in the Wei clan and saw the scene before him, his pupils constricted. The huge Wei clan was filled with the thick stench of blood and the aura of death at this moment. From the main door to the main room, everywhere was filled with corpses. Almost all of these corpses had their throats slit with a single slash. When they died, their eyes were wide open, as though they could not believe what had happened. Ouyang Qing quickly came to the square. Here, a few tens of Wei clan members were tightly surrounding a youth that was bathed in blood. The leader, Wei Tiangang, was filled with rage, gritting his teeth. Ling Yuxing, you dare to kill so many of my Wei clan members. Today I, Wei Tiangang, will not rest until I tear you to shreds. The few golden core cultivators standing beside Wei Tiangang looked at the youth with fear. Patriarch, be careful. This little rascal is too strange. He's so fast that we can't even catch his shadow. The youth slowly raised his head, revealing a snow-white, yet blood-stained face. His eyes were dark and gloomy, as if they had lost their focus. He looked frail and weak, as though he could be blown away by a gust of wind. However, the moment he moved, everyone in the square reacted as though they were facing a great enemy, and they subconsciously retreated in fear. Ling Yuxing took a deep breath and circulated the spiritual energy in his body once more. However, at the next instant, he felt a burning sensation from his dantian. His body swayed, and he almost fell to the ground. The people of the Wei clan immediately cried out in joy. He's exhausted. This brat's spiritual energy is finally exhausted. Huh? Everyone, let's kill him together. Wei Tiangang abruptly unleashed his pressure and spiritual energy. He was the first to soar into the sky and ruthlessly smashed towards the top of Ling Yuxing's head. Ling Yuxing calmly closed his eyes, standing there quietly, waiting for death to come. Without the help of his junior sister and his senior brothers, he was still too weak. However, in the next moment, his body was suddenly pulled into a warm embrace. Bang! Wei Qinggong's palm hit Ouyang Qing's back. In the nick of time, he rushed over to protect Ling Yuxing and didn't even have the time to circulate his spiritual energy. Now that he was struck by the full power of a peak golden core cultivator, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. With trembling hands, Ling Yuxing touched the warm liquid that splashed on his face. In a daze, she raised her head to look at the handsome face that was right in front of her. Her unfocused eyes slowly lit up and reflected Ouyang Qing's figure. Little Sheng, don't be afraid. Ouyang Qing reached out and caressed his blood-stained face. The corners of her mouth pulled into an incomparably gentle smile. I'm sorry, I'm late again. Chapter 1810. However, Xiao Sheng, don't be afraid. This time, I will not let anyone hurt you. After that, he suddenly turned around, and the sword in his hand danced in an airtight manner, firmly blocking Ling Yuxing behind him. Even if it was an attack from behind, he would use his own back to block it. In just a few moments, the blood on Ouyang Qing's body was no less than Ling Yuxing's. Wei Tiangong's attack had failed, and he retreated to his original position, discovering that the one who blocked his attack was actually Ouyang Qing. He was immediately enraged. Qinger, what are you doing? How can you help outsiders deal with your maternal grandfather's family? Ouyang Qing wiped the blood off his face, laughing coldly. Maternal family? Then may I ask, which one of you is my grandfather? His sharp gaze swept across everyone present. That year when my grandfather died in an accident, my mother was grieving over my father's death and fell ill. Not only did you not comfort my mother, you even tried to take care of my grandfather's descendants. Instead, you used the excuse of taking care of my mother to send Wei Kaiju to the Ouyang family. In the end, she climbed into my father's bed. Devouring was filled with grief, and he was betrayed by his kin. He died on the spot. What about you guys? Using the name of my maternal family, you lied to the ignorant me, making me think that Wei Kaiju entered the Ouyang clan to take care of me. Wei Kaiju had wanted to give birth to a son and let him inherit the Ouyang clan, who knew that she only gave birth to a daughter and was unable to conceive another child. In the end, Wei Kaiju had no choice but to change her mind. She wanted to use her and Wei Tianming's daughter to steal Ouyang Qing's heart and make Wei Mingzhu the mistress of the Ouyang clan. Hence, ever since Ouyang Qing could remember, Wei Kaiju had always been gentle and caring towards him. At one point, he had treated her as his kin and treated her as his own sister. However, who would have thought that these two would be so crazy, and the Wei clan was even more vicious than most people could imagine. The more Ouyang Qing investigated, the more shocked he became. He finally understood how foolish he had been in the past. Because of his foolishness, what kind of harm had he brought to Xiaosheng? Hearing Ouyang Qing's words, Wei Tiangang and the rest had awkward expressions. However, very quickly, Wei Tiangang rebuked. Even if we did something wrong, we're still your kin. Who does this little hussy think she is? He killed so many people from my Wei family. Are you still going to stand on his side? Suddenly, his face was filled with disgust. Don't tell me that Ming Zhu said that you like men and were seduced by this little slut. Is it true? The sword in Ouyang Qing's hand slashed out fiercely. Wei Tiangang, you can insult me, but you can't insult little Sheng. Wei Tiangang was so angry that his whole body was trembling. You actually dare to treat me like this? I'm your granduncle. If you dare to make a move against me, you will be committing treason and will be struck by lightning. Ouyang Qing looked up to the sky and let out a long howl. The long sword in his hand, along with him, flew out. The man's hoarse but resolute voice reverberated between heaven and earth. For Xiao Sheng, even if I have to become enemies with the entire world, even if I have to be struck by lightning and be consigned to eternal damnation, I will not hesitate. Ling Yuxing looked at the man who rushed out, his already cold and numb heart lightly beating. However, Ouyang Qing's strength was only on par with Ling Yuxing. Ling Yuxing couldn't fight against everyone in the Wei clan by himself, and Ouyang Qing naturally couldn't do it either. Chapter 1811. Especially the ancestor of the Wei clan, Wei Tiangang. He had only come out when Ling Yuxing was almost exhausted from the battle. He was powerful and had a profound cultivation. Even at his peak, the two of them might not be his match. Moreover, Ling Yuxing's spiritual power was already exhausted, and Ouyang Qing was seriously injured. If Wei Tiangang didn't dare to kill Ouyang Qing because she was the young master of the Ouyang clan, Ouyang Qing would have already fallen. At this moment, the melodious sound of a zither came from the sky. Ling Yuxing felt that his dried-up dantian was filled with an endless stream of gentle spiritual power. His eyes lit up and he looked up at the sky. He saw a black-haired girl in green holding a black zither and stepping on a crystal-clear longsword. She slowly landed on the ground. Echo, aura, activated. It was Mu Yan's zither that allowed Ling Yuxing's spiritual power to flow into his limbs and bones. Not long after, the flying boat whizzed over from behind Mu Yan. The people of the Xiao Yao sect jumped off the flying boat. Xiao Wu, are you okay? When the people of the Xiao Yao sect saw Ling Yuxing covered in blood, their expressions changed. Their murderous intent swept through the entire training field of the Wei clan like a bone-chilling wind. Lung Yuma didn't think, and immediately released her ardent sun domain. The blazing aura caused the spiritual power in the air of the Wei clan to boil. How dare you bully our Xiao Wu? Go to hell! The long blade suddenly soared into the sky and fiercely slashed at the people of the Wei clan who were attacking Ouyang Qing. The blade was wrapped in spiritual power, and like a fire dragon, it crashed into the crowd with a bang. A few of the Wei clan guards, who were fighting excitedly, immediately let out miserable cries as they were thrown to the ground by the saber force. There was clearly no fire, but their clothes showed signs of being burnt. Even now, their skin and flesh were still making sizzling sounds along with their moans. The people of the Wei clan stopped attacking Ouyang Qing. Wei Tiangang saw that among the people injured by the blade energy, there was a junior of the Wei clan that he thought highly of. He immediately became furious and fiercely glared at Mu Yan and the others. Who are you? How dare you come to my Wei clan and behave atrociously? As he spoke, the two black hammers in his hands turned into a ray of light and flew towards Lung Yuma and Luo Yu. These two hammers were called black gold hammers. Although they were only the size of 2 palms, they were extremely powerful. In fact, each sword was as heavy as a small mountain. It was a genuine 7th-stage spirit weapon. If an ordinary person were to be lightly touched by this black gold hammer, all the bones in their body would break. Furthermore, the power of the black gold hammer was not limited to just this. When Wei Tiangang took out the black gold hammer, he poured his gold spiritual energy into it. The two hammers had just flown into the air when they were already crackling with lightning. Every time a bolt of lightning landed on the ground, it would raise a cloud of dust and create a small pit. With such a strike, not to mention a few Anidia stage kids, even a Gene Dance stage expert would definitely be smashed by this black gold hammer until he vomited blood and was roasted by the lightning. However, before the black gold hammers could get close to Lung Yuma and Luo Yu, the melodious sound of the zither rang out. Then, a wall of sound appeared in front of the 7 people of the Xiao Yao sect. The black gold hammers heavily smashed on the wall of sound, making crackling sounds of lightning. It kept spinning, but it was unable to move an inch forward. Wei Qiangong's face changed, and he blurted out, "This is impossible. How could there be someone who could block his black gold hammers?" Wei Tiangang gritted his teeth, and the spiritual energy in his body revolved wildly, pouring into the black gold hammers through the air. Chapter 1812. The 2 black hammers spun even faster on the sound wall, emitting a zzz sound. Mine's expression is leisurely as she says slowly, "Second senior brother." The devourer calls him, and he immediately steps forward obediently, extending both hands. One in each hand, he grabs the 2 hammers that are crazily spinning and vibrating on the sound wall. The weight of the hammers is so great, their spinning speed is so fast, and they're also attached with lightning. If an ordinary person were to touch them, their fingers and bones would have long been smashed and scorched. But Qin Jiu grabs the 2 hammers easily, as if he's grabbing a chick. Wei Qiangong's face is even more aghast, his voice suddenly rising. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ah!" The next moment, he feels that the divine sense he branded on the hammers is forcibly erased by a fierce energy. Wei Tiangang immediately spits out a mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with fury. "Ah, thief, you dare to take away my hammers." Mayan is all smiles as she pats the silly Qin Jiu. "Well done. Put away these hammers. Later, just use them as a plaything." Qin Jiu nods, grabs his hair, and giggles mischievously, although he prefers to fight with his fists. But the little junior sister told him to put them away, so of course he has to. Wei Tiangang watches helplessly as his 7th grade spiritual tool is snatched away. He's simply going mad with anger. But before he could flare up, someone from the Wei family suddenly cries out, "Jun Mayan! She's the female devil Jun Mayan!" Soon after, this person's gaze turns to Yun Ruhan, Qin Jiu, Chu Moli, Lung Yumao, Luo Yu, and Ling Yuxing with alarm and disbelief. His pupils suddenly contract. The shock on his face makes him almost unable to speak clearly. The unfettered 7 devils. They're the unfettered 7 devils. Ling Yuxing. How could I forget? One of the unfettered 7 devils is also called Ling Yuxing. As soon as this statement comes out, the Wei family side is completely silent, completely scared silly. Unfettered 7 devils? Which unfettered 7 devils? Could it be that the unfettered 7 devils, the 4th great world of the Azure Blue world, the Tian family, which had a nascent soul stage cultivator? Heavens, what kind of person did their Wei family provoke? Thump! Some of the guards of the Wei clan could not take it anymore, kneeling on the ground, their faces pale. "I'm not from the Wei clan. I'm just a servant hired by the Wei clan. I'm willing to surrender." I surrender too. Please spare our lives." Many of the Wei clan's guards changed sides and knelt on the ground to beg for mercy. It was not that they were weak or cowardly, nor did they have a contract spirit. It was just that the reputation of the 7 unfettered devils was too terrifying. Especially Jun Mayan, that demoness. Anyone who had heard of her legendary deeds would know. From the Min Lu domain to the Azure Cloud domain to the Azure Blue domain, as long as they offended her, they would all die a miserable death. You don't believe me? Let's take a look at the Tian family, not to mention the complete annihilation of a large clan. The Tian clan's lackeys were stripped of their clothes and made to pose in a shameful pose, with a large number of nude paintings painted on them. Presently, these paintings had long since spread throughout the streets and alleys of the Min LV, Azure Cloud, and Azure Blue domains. These people would probably never be able to raise their heads again in this lifetime. Sob, sob, sob. They would rather die than follow in the footsteps of the Tian family. Even Wei Tiangang is dumbfounded. He shakily raises his head and meets Ling Yuxing's cold eyes, then turns to look at the murderous Mayan and the rest. He shudders all over. Chapter 1813. The Unfettered Seven Devils. Are they really the Unfettered Seven Devils? No, no, no. How is this possible? It's not like he doesn't know Ling Yuxing. Isn't that the son of Ouyang Manor's housekeeper? He's seen him a few times in the past when he visited the Ouyang family. Although he has delicate features and outstanding talent, it's not a big deal. Back then, Ling Yuxing had Ouyang Qing's protection, but he was still tortured by the Wei family. How did he become the unfettered seven devils that the entire azure blue world trembles in fear? Wei Tiangang grits his teeth. Ling Yuxing, don't think that this old man will be afraid of you just because you found a few people to pretend to be the unfettered seven devils. Even if you've grown stronger and know how to put on an act, you can't change the fact that you're just a lowly bastard. Moreover, a shameless bastard who likes men. Ha! Ouyang Qing's eyes are spitting fire, about to make a move against Wei Tiangang. However, Ling Yuxing slowly took a step forward and stopped his movements. I will avenge myself. Ouyang Qing's eyes are full of heartache, but he still retreats. Yun Ruhan and the rest also take a few steps back, standing behind Mu Yin. Mu Yin leisurely and languidly sits on the ground, his slender white fingers lightly plucking the zither strings. Fifth senior brother, I'll be your assistant. The rest of the Wei family are all yours. Ling Yuxing smiles gratefully at Mu Yin. He took out a silver hair tie from his Qingquan pouch and tied his long hair. His face was stained with blood, but it appeared even more delicate and beautiful. The warm sunlight and gentle breeze fall on his face. He can't help but narrow his eyes, taking a deep breath. When he opens his eyes again, the haze and deathly stillness in his eyes have completely dissipated. Yes, he wasn't all alone and filled with despair any longer. He has senior brothers and sisters by his side who care for him, master and junior uncle who teach him. Those are his nightmares, but he's awakened from them now. The road ahead is lit with sparks, bringing warmth and hope. Ling Yuxing's face slowly blooms with a bright smile. Wei Tiangang, Wei Yongjin, Wei Mingzhu, today, I'll take back everything your Wei family owes me. The muscles on Wei Tiangong's face twitched. He wanted to scold him for overestimating himself. How could a cultivator at the neediest stage be compared to him, a cultivator at the peak of Jindan's stage? However, at this moment, a terrifying energy that made him shudder suddenly spread out from Ling Yuxing and engulfed everyone present. Silence, emptiness, like the murmur of flowing water, and the silence of the night. But in reality, it was neither. It was the one and only space-time corridor in the world. Mayan's eyes suddenly widen, and she almost plucks a wrong string on the zither. The other members of the Xiao Yao sect were also shocked. Ouyang Qing was pleasantly surprised as she looked at the youth not far away. There was pride and excitement on her face as her eyes slowly turned red. After a long while, Yin Ruhan muttered hoarsely. Little 5 activated his domain. Yes. At this moment, Ling Yuxing, whose mind was clear and bright, finally activated his own domain. Moreover, it was the space domain that very few people in the world could activate. His domain was the same as Luo Yunxiao, belonging to the 9 luminaries grading. Wei Tiangong's eyes slightly protruded. His pupils were bloodshot, visible to the naked eye. Extreme fear made the veins on his hand that was holding the weapon bulge. Chapter 1814. An hour later, Wei Tiangang lay on the ground like a dead dog, coughing up blood nonstop, unable to get up. As for the rest of the Wei clan, they had already been devoured. Those who had already fainted, those who had surrendered. Amidst the corpses, the one who stood stably was that delicate and frail youth. We won. Luo Yu laughed as she ran over and hugged the youth, shouting excitedly. "Fifth senior brother, you're amazing. You were so fast, I couldn't even see your movements." Ling Yuxing's body swayed, his face pale, but he smiled warmly. "I didn't think that I could activate my domain under such circumstances." His domain was related to space, so when it was used in battle, it was the limit of speed, even teleportation. Just now, when he fought with Wei Tiangang, he used a speed that the naked eye couldn't follow to exhaust him to death. It was just that this kind of battle technique consumed too much spiritual energy in Yuan Shi. Even with the help of junior sister Zither, he felt drained and couldn't muster any strength. But no matter what, being able to activate his domain was a pleasant surprise. Ling Yuxing said, "This time, I finally have the face to see Teacher Mo and Junior Uncle." Hearing his words, Luo Yu's face fell. That's right, the only ones who haven't activated their domains are second senior brother, third senior brother, and him. Back then, Teacher Mo and Junior Uncle only gave them 3 more months, and now the 3 months are almost up. If they still can't activate their domains, Teacher Mo and Junior Uncle will be completely disappointed in them and won't care about them anymore. In fact, Luo Yu felt strange. The rest of the Xiao Yao sect, including second senior brother, felt that they had touched the door of the domain, but only he could feel that he was getting closer and closer to the door. But recently, this feeling had disappeared. On the contrary, the soul pearl on his back was constantly burning. There were a few times when he was dreaming, he could even hear Bai Zhe whispering something in his ear. But what exactly it said, he couldn't remember it when he woke up. Ling Yuxing was about to comfort Luo Yu, when his expression suddenly changed and he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was holding a bloody person in his hand. It was Wei Yongjin. Even though Ling Yuxing had thought things through, his eyes were still filled with deep hatred when he saw Wei Yongjin. Just now, he had only crippled Wei Yongjin and not killed him. Instead, he had focused on dealing with the Wei family. That was because he would not allow that bastard to die so easily. The bones in Wei Yongjin's legs were completely shattered, the piercing pain causing his entire body to tremble. When he saw Ling Yuxing, his face revealed deep fear, and he screamed as he tried to crawl away. Ling Yuxing sneered, and the demon-absorbing needle in his hand flew out. Ah! Dozens of needles pierced into Wei Yongjin's body, not into his flesh, but directly into his bones. How could an ordinary person endure that kind of pain? Wei Yongjin immediately let out a blood-curdling scream like a pig being slaughtered, and his whole body kept bouncing on the ground. Ling Yuxing retracted his hand and activated the demonic binding silk. The needle in Wei Yongjin's body flew out. This was another round of torture for Wei Yongjin. When all 36 demon-absorbing needles were pulled out, Wei Yongjin could barely speak. Chapter 1815. Spare my life. Booze, spare my life. Ling Yuxing slowly walks up to Wei Yongjin, looking down at him from above. That year, when I begged you to let me go, what was your answers? At that time, Wei Yongjin was holding torture tools in his hands, his face showing a psychopathic smile. Ha ha ha. Only when you're being tortured will you let out such a beautiful cry. I can't stop myself from yelling. In order for this young master to enjoy it, Ling Yuxing, cry out in pain. The louder you cry, the more pain you show, the more excited and comfortable this young master will be. Ha ha ha. The needles in Ling Yuxing's hands fly out again. This time it's not 36, but 81. 9 of them uniformly plunge into Wei Yongjin's spine. The sound of his spine being pierced rang in Wei Yongjin's ears one after another. Ling Yuxing looks at him coldly, his voice icy. Didn't you say that you like to listen to other people's cries of pain? Then listen to it properly. Wei Yongjin's mouth is wide open, drool continuously flowing from his mouth, mixing with his tears. The crotch of his trousers has long been muddy. He can't even scream anymore. He can only struggle and crawl towards Wei Tiangang, his mouth shouting, "Save me, save me." Mu Yin throws Ouyang Mingzhu in front of Ling Yuxing from her chinquan bag. "Fifth brother, these people owe you. Today you'll get them all back." The sound prison loosens, and Wei Mingzhu awkwardly crawls out. Her eyes turn, and she first sees the Wei family's plaque. Her face brightens, and she's about to cry for help. But before her voice can come out, she sees the Wei family members lying in disorder on the square. Wei Tiangang, who's on the verge of death, and Wei Yongjin, who's covered in blood and wailing incessantly. The hope in Wei Mingzhu's eyes slowly turns into panic. Then, her gaze falls on Ouyang Qing, and she frantically rushes over. "Big brother, save me!" She hugs Ouyang Qing's thigh, tears streaming down her face. "Brother, I'm the little sister you watched grow up. When I was young, you hugged me and fed me milk. You won't just stand and watch as I'm killed, right?" Ling Yuxing's body suddenly stiffened when he saw this. The absorbing needles in his hands were slowly lowered. Ouyang Qing's heart ached when she saw Ling Yuxing's actions. But he did not say anything. Instead, he lowered his head to look at Wei Mingzhu, who was hugging him. "Have you forgotten? You have already admitted to me that you are Wei Mingzhu, the bastard child of Wei Kaizhu and Wei Tianming. Look, even your name contains the affection between the two of them." Wei Mingzhu shuddered, then cried even harder. "Yes, I'm not your biological sister, but I love you. Brother, everything I do is only because I love you. If it wasn't for that slut Ling Yuxing seducing you, I would have already obtained your heart. I was jealous of him and hated him. That's why I attacked him. Brother, how can you bear to kill me, who loves you so much?" Seeing this, Ling Yuxing slowly lowered his eyes and revealed a mocking smile. In Ouyang Qing's heart, Ouyang Mingzhu, the younger sister who grew up with him, was more important. Perhaps the person Ouyang Qing truly loved was Ouyang Mingzhu. Otherwise, why would he have chased her away that year? Chapter 1816. Why would he leave the Ouyang clan and turn a blind eye to her life and death, allowing Wei Yongjin and Ouyang Mingzhu to persecute her to such an extent? The devouring slowly turned into a sharp, killing intent. He raised the demon-absorbing needle in his hand again. So what if Ouyang Qing wanted to protect Ouyang Mingzhu? He had never forgotten what Ouyang Mingzhu had done to him back then. He would definitely get her back. Ouyang Qing's heart ached even more when she saw Ling Yuxing's actions. He hurriedly tried to explain, "Little Sheng, Before he could finish his words, his face suddenly changed, and he pounced towards Ling Yuxing without thinking. Ling Yuxing never expected that Ouyang Qing would directly attack him when he wanted to kill Ouyang Mingzhu. For a moment, the hatred, pain, and despair in his heart surged again. However, before the hatred in his heart could completely ferment, Ouyang Qing had already hugged him tightly and turned around. Boom! A loud noise came from behind the two of them. Ling Yuxing felt that his internal organs were shaking. Then, a stream of warm liquid sprayed into his neck. The pungent smell of blood slowly flowed on his skin. Ling Yuxing was stunned, his body stiffening inch by inch. His pupils shrunk to the size of a needle tip, and the blood in his body turned cold bit by bit. He opened his mouth, and after a long while, he managed to speak in a hoarse voice. Ouyang Qing. Ouyang Qing's arms, which were hugging him, slowly fell down. The tall body seemed to have finally exhausted all its strength and slowly fell down. Behind him was Wei Tiangang, who was covered in blood and had a large hole in his dantian. He fell straight to the ground and swallowed his last breath. Until the moment of his death, he still had a sinister smile on his face. Wei Tiangang saw that the Wei clan was going to be annihilated and knew that he would not be able to escape his fate. He was also indignant that the Wei clan had been destroyed by the hands of Ling Yuxing, the son of a servant, so he actually chose to self-destruct. Mu Yin and the others all thought that the Wei family's people had long been beaten by Ling Yuxing to the point where they did not have the strength to retaliate. Therefore, everyone's attention was focused on Wei Yongjin and Wei Mingzhu. It was to the extent that no one noticed Wei Tiangong's unusual movements. Only Ouyang Qing remained. His attention, his gaze, his entire heart had never left Ling Yuxing for even a moment. Therefore, when Wei Tiangang blew himself up, without thinking, he pounced over and blocked the attack for Ling Yuxing. Ling Yuxing suddenly crouched down and caught Yangqing's falling body. He wanted to help her up, but found that his hands were shaking badly. Little junior sister. Ling Yuxing screamed. Even he himself did not realize how much fear there was in his voice. Mu Yin quickly stepped forward and took Yangqing's pulse, but his heart sank. Yangqing's injuries were obviously very serious, and she was already on the verge of death. She doesn't say much and quickly plucks the strings of the Tian Mo Qin. The Saint of Benevolence was displayed without hesitation. In the space, Qi Huang said with a sullen face, "Jun Mayan, you idiot, you're wasting your lifespan for someone else again." Mu Yin, in the future, my cultivation will inevitably reach the peak of a cultivator, and my lifespan will naturally be more than thousands of years. What's there to be afraid of if I consume a little bit of it? Qi Huang said angrily, "You're really shameless when you praise yourself. Who said that your lifespan will definitely be more than 10,000 years?" Chapter 1817. Mayan sneers. My fiancé has already lived for 1,000 years, and my son has a natural immortal body. If there are no accidents, he can live for at least a few thousand years. My tool spirit has already existed for tens of thousands of years. If I can't live a little longer, wouldn't I be living in vain? Qi Huang. Damn it. What she said makes sense. He can't refute it at all. However, the benevolence of the saint can bring Yangqing back from the edge of life and death, but it can't really heal his injuries. Blood keeps gushing out of Yangqing's mouth. Ling Yuxing shakes his hand, wanting to feed the pill into his mouth. But Yangqing grabs his wrist. The blood-stained hand has clearly lost its strength, but it's tightly clenched, like it's going all out to hold on to something important. A broken voice overflows from Yangqing's mouth. "Xiaosheng, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you back then. Why couldn't I protect the one I love the most in this life?" Tears mixed with blood trickle down his face, carrying so much regret, despair, and pain. Ling Yuxing puts the pill into his mouth, his voice trembling. "Don't talk anymore. Yangqing, you can't repay what you owe me in this lifetime, so you'd better live well." Devour jumps, his originally dim eyes brighten a bit. He opens his mouth. "Xiaosheng, I still have a chance to stay by your side." Yangqing's words haven't finished. The sluggish Wei Mingzhu comes back to her senses. She really loves Yangqing. Seeing that Yangqing was seriously injured and on the verge of death, she scrambled over to him. Brother, how are you? Don't scare me, okay?" Suddenly, she fiercely glares at Ling Yuxing, shrieking hysterically, "Ling Yuxing, it's all because of you, you slut jinx. You're the one who killed my brother." He was originally the young master of the Ouyang family, young and promising, with outstanding talent. He would have become the most outstanding cultivator in Cloud-Piercing City and even the Blue World. But because you slut seduced him, you made him bear the infamy of liking men, making him unable to stay in Cloud-Piercing City. And now you killed him. Ling Yuxing, you shameless slut, why didn't you die? Wei Mingzhu's voice stopped abruptly. She opened her mouth wide and made a cracking sound. Her head stiffened and drooped down woodenly as she looked at her chest. There, a long sword pierced through. Blood dripped from the tip of the sword. Why? Wei Mingzhu slowly turned around and looked at Yangqing, who was holding the sword. Brother, why are you doing this to me?" Yangqing's eyes were already unfocused, and his breathing was so weak that it was almost inaudible. But his hand that was holding the sword was extremely steady, and it steadily pierced through Wei Mingzhu's chest. A low and hoarse voice slowly spat out from his slightly parted lips. "Back then, I told you, anyone who hurts little Sheng, I will never let them go. I will never forgive them." Yangqing pulled out the sword stuck in his chest. Once again, he spurted out a mouthful of blood. Yangqing! Ling Yuxing hugged him and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He couldn't help but roar, "Yangqing, Don't die. Chapter 1818. You said that you owe me, and you will compensate me for the rest of your life. You can't break your promise again and again. Ouyang Qing's face slowly blooms with a warm smile. Xiao Sheng I've been waiting for many years to tell you, but I'm afraid if I don't say it, I won't have a chance. Xiao Sheng, I love you. A long, long time ago, before Ling Yuxing fell in love with Ouyang Qing, Ouyang Qing has been deeply in love with Ling Yu Sheng. I just don't dare to admit. Who would have thought that his momentary confusion and struggle would cause Ling Yuxing to suffer so much? Who would have thought that just a momentary miss would almost separate them forever, life and death? If there is a next life, will you still be with me? Whether it's a man or a woman, whether it's a man or a beast, as long as Ouyang Qing and Ling Yuxing are together, it's fine. It has nothing to do with human relations, nothing to do with morality. It's just pure love. Ling Yuxing can't hold back his tears anymore. He grabs Ouyang Qing's hand and sobs. Ouyang Qing, I won't let you die. Don't die. Don't leave me, okay? There is no next life. There is no next life. I only want Ouyang Qing to live. Brother Qing, I promise you, as long as you live, I will forgive you, and from now on, we will never be separated. Ouyang Qing's pale face is covered with blood, but he shows a bright and satisfied smile, then slowly closes his eyes. Brother Qing. Ling Yuxing lets out a mournful and desperate cry. The people of the Xiaoyao school also sadly look away, unwilling to see this scene of life and death. At this time, the zither music slowly stops. Mu Yin weakly says, "Don't worry, he won't die. He just entered the star fantasy to receive treatment." Ling Yuxing suddenly raises his head. His red eyes look at Mu Yin, his voice trembling with hope. "Junior sister, you mean Brother Qing is still alive?" Mu Yin raises her eyebrows. Although her face is pale and weak, her eyes are filled with disdain. "Since I made a move, how can I let him die? Don't worry. When he wakes up from the astral illusion, he'll be fine after devouring it. It's just that his body is extremely weak now, and he needs a long time to recuperate." Ling Yuxing quickly stretched out his hand to check Ouyang Qing's pulse. Although it was weak, both her breathing and spiritual energy were stable. It was obvious that he was still alive, but he had fallen into a deep sleep. Overjoyed, he raises his head and looks at Mayan. He wants to say thank you, but he can't utter a word for a long time. Mu Yin smiled and said, "You want to thank me? There was no need for that. I just feel that if I let Ouyang Qing die like this, wouldn't my fifth martial sister-in-law be gone? It won't be easy to find another handsome guy who can stand next to my fifth senior brother." The members of the Xiaoyao sect burst into laughter. Fifth sister-in-law? Fifth sister-in-law? Looking at Ouyang Qing's handsome, masculine face, the Xiaoyao sect disciples and Yin Ruhan couldn't help but laugh as they nodded in agreement. Of course, Ouyang Qing would marry into the Xiaoyao school. However, since Ouyang Qing was now a family member of the Xiaoyao school, they should treat him better in the future. Chapter 1819. Everyone looks at Wei Yongjin and Wei Mingzhu. One of them is scared to the point of insanity, and the other has been stimulated by Ouyang Qing. Their mouths keep spouting nonsense. Ling Yuxing looks at the two, and suddenly loses interest in revenge. He's about to finish them off with a single sword strike. Unexpectedly, Chu Moli suddenly opens his mouth. "I'm short of 2 experimental subjects. Why don't you give them to me?" Mine looks at him suspiciously. "Third brother, you've taken away at least 8, if not 10 experimental subjects, right? What are you doing?" The conflict with the Tian family last time was also because of those Xiozha that had been especially rude and had done too many heinous things. Mayan and the others originally wanted to execute justice, but they were also taken away by Chu Moli. However, no one in the entire Xiaoyao school knows what kind of abnormal experiment this abnormal third brother is doing. Chu Moli shows a gentle smile and unhurriedly says, "It's a secret." Moreover, He pauses, meets Mayan's eyes, and his expression becomes more and more gentle and shy. Moreover, I can guarantee that, little sister, you won't want to know what I'm doing. The youth in front of her clearly has a delicate appearance, and his smile is gentle and harmless, but Mayan shivers for no reason. She always feels that her third brother seems to be more and more abnormal. After returning to Yaoguang branch, Mayan immediately hides in her room. In fact, the holy benevolence technique consumes a lot of her strength. She can feel that the vitality in her body seems to have been drained. But she doesn't dare to show it in front of the people of the Xiaoyao school, for fear that they will make a fuss over nothing. She's even more afraid that fifth brother will feel guilty. At this time, Mayan can only rejoice. Fortunately, Di Mingju is dealing with the matters of the Xioshin continent and isn't in Yaoguang branch. Otherwise, if this man knew that she hurt herself to save others, he would never let it go. Just as this thought flashes through her mind, Mayan feels that something is wrong and suddenly opens her eyes. A pair of icy blue eyes were right in front of her, staring at her without blinking. The moment she sees these eyes, Mayan's whole heart jumps up, thinking that Di Mingju has returned. When she comes back to her senses, she finds that the one staring at her is Xiaobao. A thought flashes through her mind. Xiaobao's eyes seem to be more and more similar to Di Mingju's. Of course, there were people with blue eyes in the three realms. But just now, for a split second, she really thought that the one looking at her was Di Mingju. Could this be what Bai Xie said? That people who spend a lot of time together will have the look of husband and wife, the look of father and son? Thinking that one day, she will become more and more like Di Mingju, Mu Yin couldn't help but burst into laughter. Unexpectedly, when Xiaobao, who was already unhappy, saw her smile, his tender cheeks puffed up even higher. "I'm not happy," was written all over his face. Mu Yin reached out and held him in her arms, softly saying, "What's wrong with Xiaobao? Why are you unhappy?" Xiaobao was still unhappy. He twisted his little body and turned his back to Mu Yin, strongly expressing the feeling that baby is angry. Mu Yin said dejectedly, "Xiaobao is ignoring Yangqin. Does he not want Yangqin anymore?" "I won't." The little guy's anger didn't last for a moment before he was immediately tricked back by Mu Yin. Hearing the sadness in his Yangqin's voice, he immediately turns around and wraps his short arms around Mu Yin's neck. Xiaobao likes Yangqin the most. Mu Yin hugs her son's soft little body and kisses his cheeks several times. Yangqin also likes Xiaobao the most. "So, Xiaobao, don't be angry at Yangqin, okay?" Chapter 1820. Xiaobao coyly nods and nestles on her, smelling his mother's fragrant scent. His eyelids are a little heavy. Ever since Daddy came back, Mommy has always been snatched away by him. Xiaobao hasn't slept with Mommy for a long time. Mommy's smell is so good. Mommy's embrace is so warm. Xiaobao likes it very much. He likes it the most in the world. Mommy. Xiaobao will also quickly become stronger. Protect Mommy. Mu Yin looks at the sleeping Xiaobao in her arms, gently removes his hair bun, and gently pats his back. As long as this little baby is by her side, she feels full of strength, and the road ahead is bright and hopeful. However, as a medical skill, this Saint of Benevolence does have many flaws. If she uses it again in the future, she's afraid that sooner or later, Xiaobao, Di Mingju, or her fellow apprentices will discover it. Although the realm of stars can also treat illnesses, it takes too long and the effect isn't very good. Mu Yin sighs. The Shun musician inheritance is so magical. There are auxiliary skills, martial skills, alchemy, talismans, but how come there aren't any effective skills in the field of medicine? Qi Huang sneers. "You fool. Don't you know that the most powerful skill of the Shun musicians is medicine? That Tian Yimin wasn't even fit to carry shoes for the Shun music sect." Mu Yin is startled. The most powerful is medicine? That can't be right. Then how come the medical skills I've learned now are of little value? The current medical skills of the Shun musicians include mist dispersing, Saint of Benevolence, and echo recovery. Mist dispersing is mainly used to disintegrate inner demons, and echo recovery is used to restore spiritual power and internal force. Both belong to the medical category, but they don't have any real therapeutic functions. Saint of Benevolence can treat illnesses, but it can be used to hurt oneself to save others, and it's just excessive anger. These three broken skills are useful for swallowing the surgery recorded in Bailey Leoine's notes and her own medical skills. Chi Huang hums twice. That's because you haven't broken through the third stage of the Shan musician realm. So naturally you can't master the strongest skills of the Shan musician realm. The third stage? The third stage of the Shan musician realm is the first stage. Now she is already at the second stage of the 5th level, and to break through the third stage, she has to reach the 7th level. Thinking about it, it didn't seem that far from level 5 to level 7. Doesn't that mean that she will soon be able to master the powerful Shan musician's medical skills? Chi Huang seems to have guessed what she's thinking, and he laughs disdainfully. Jun Mayan, stop dreaming. Let's not talk about upgrading the Shan musician skills from the 5th level to the 6th. However, if one wanted to advance from the 6th level to the 7th level, there was no need to mention how difficult it was to break through. It's impossible for this damaged Tian Mo Chin to withstand the power of a level 7 Shan musician technique. Mayan stares blankly. You mean? Jun Mayan. Have you forgotten Ben Zun's reminder to hurry up and restore the Tian Mo Chin? Chi Huang is quite delighted in her misfortune. You don't take Ben Zun's words to heart. Now, if you want to rise to the 7th level of Shan musician and obtain a medical skill, you must first find the missing part of the Tian Mo Chin and fix it. Otherwise, you can continue to use Saint's benevolence in secret. Huh? After listening to Chi Huang's words, Mu Yin was really a little worried. She can still upgrade her Shan musician skills through diligent and bitter practice. Even if she's currently stuck at the peak of the fasting stage, there will always be a day when she can cross over. Chapter 1821. But where would she go to find the missing parts of the Tian Mo Chin? Tian Mo Chin needs to be repaired 3 times in total. The parts needed for these 3 restorations are placed in the Yinwu continent, the Xiujin continent, and the Xiuxin continent. The map in Bailey Leoine's notes only indicates the location of the Tian Mo Chin's restoration accessory on the Yinwu continent. But she had no information about the cultivation continent and the cultivation continent. How was she going to find them? Looking for a needle in a haystack? Moreover, because of the special identity of the Shan musician. According to the inherited memories left behind by Bailey Yinlu, the Shan musicians had offended all the sects in the 3 realms. He did it all over again. She even had some vague information in her mind. The polar domain was also a part of the people who shouted to kill the Shan musicians. Mu Yin doesn't know how much Di Mingju knows about her identity as a Shan musician. However, Chi Huang tried his best to stop her from confessing, and Chi Huang's identity could not be exposed in front of others. Therefore, she can't even tell Di Mingju about the matter of searching for the Tian Mo Chin's accessories. With her power alone, she could search the entire continent for something that she didn't even know what it was. Fuck, it would be a miracle if they could really find it. Yanqing had thought that she was going to die, but who knew that she would escape death? It was a blessing in disguise for him, as he was given the opportunity to stay in the Alcade branch school to recover from his injuries. Moreover, the person taking care of him was Ling Yuxing. Yanqing was so happy that she almost couldn't tell which way was north. However, he soon realized that something was wrong. Although Ling Yuxing took care of him, he remained silent the entire time and didn't make eye contact with him. As soon as he left the room, he smiled and talked to the people of the Shaorao sect. Yanqing's heart was filled with apprehension and jealousy, fear and longing. Even her original joy had turned into torment. This time, he finally couldn't help but grab hold of Ling Yuxing, who was about to leave after changing his gauze. Little Sheng, can you listen to me? Ling Yuxing stopped and looked down at him, still not saying anything. Yanqing gritted her teeth and said, Little Sheng, what happened back then? I don't want to talk about what happened in the past. Ling Yuxing interrupted him with a cold expression and turned to leave. I won't take what you said a few days ago to heart. I know you're just feeling guilty. Before he could finish, Ouyangqing suddenly pulled him down onto the bed and roared like an enraged beast. "Fuck your guilt." Ling Yuxing jumped in fright when he saw the bleeding wounds on Ouyangqing's body. He quickly said, "Ouyangqing, are you crazy? Why aren't you lying down? Your wounds are going to split open." Ouyangqing's body was severely injured due to Wei Tiangong's self-detonation. Even the circulation of spiritual energy in her dantian and meridians was obstructed. Therefore, his wounds could not be healed in a short period of time. He could only use medicinal pills to nurse his body's injuries. But Ouyangqing pressed him down and refused to budge. In a hoarse voice, she said, "Xiao Sheng, you don't know anything. Back then, before you confessed to me, I already had a different kind of feeling for you. But at that time, I was bound by morals and ethics. I was afraid of the fact that I had fallen in love with a man, and I was also afraid of dragging you into the abyss of eternal damnation. That's why I desperately wanted to avoid you, but you're like an addiction that I can't get rid of. How can I avoid you?" Afterwards, you were drugged and in a delirious state. You said that you liked me. I was simply wild with joy. My rationality and emotions were completely dominated by lust. Chapter 1822. You were the one who was drugged, but I was even crazier than you. There was only one thought in my mind, and that was to get you, to get the person I yearned for day and night, the person I loved madly, but never dared to touch. When I woke up the next day, my rationality returned, and I couldn't believe what I had done, especially when I saw the scars on your body. I couldn't hide the joy in my heart, but at the same time, I was angry that I had dragged you down with me. But when you said that you didn't need me to take responsibility, these emotions all turned into anger. Ouyangqing's voice was filled with unconcealable pain. I did something that I would never forgive myself for the rest of my life. I told you to get lost, and I pushed you out with my own hands. But as soon as you left, I regretted it. I went out to look for you like crazy, but Ouyang Mingzhu told me that you had left, gone to a faraway place, and would never return. I didn't believe it at first, but later on, even your father, brother, and even my father said that you had left, so I had no choice but to believe it. From then on, I couldn't stay at home for even a moment. There were traces of you everywhere, and if I stayed a moment longer, I felt that I would be tortured by regret and longing. Plop! Hot tears fell on Ling Yuxing's face, drop after drop. "Xiao Sheng, I really didn't know that Wei Mingzhu would be so crazy. I'm sorry. It was I who made you suffer so much. It was I who hurt you so badly. Xiao Sheng, I don't expect you to forgive me. I only ask that you allow me to use the rest of my life to make up for the harm I've done to you." Ling Yuxing fell silent and did not speak for a long time. To Ouyangqing, every moment that Ling Yuxing was silent was like rolling in the 18th level of hell. He waited for Xiao Sheng's judgment with hope and despair. Finally, he heard the young man's hoarse voice. "What if your father wants to stop us from being together? What if your father doesn't allow me to live in this world?" Ouyangqing's heart tightened, and he suddenly grabbed his wrist, saying without hesitation, "I've said it before, no matter who stays by your side, they can't hurt you without my permission. For this, even if I have to go against the heavens, even if I'm doomed eternally, I won't hesitate." He gritted his teeth, and his eyes revealed a deep struggle. "I don't know if my father was one of the people who hurt you back then. No matter what Ouyang Xiandong did, he's still my father. I can't promise you that I won't kill him. But little Sheng, even if I die, I won't let him continue to hurt you. If he objects, I'll give up my identity as the Ouyang family's young master and roam the world with you. If you still want me." After she finished speaking, Ouyangqing stared at Ling Yuxing without blinking. Her eyes were filled with anxiety, completely unlike the decisive senior Ouyang who had attracted the hearts of all the girls in the Starry School. Instead, she looked like a pitiful wife who was afraid of being kicked out of the house. "Puchi!" Ling Yuxing was amused by his imagination. He flipped Ouyangqing over onto the bed and said with a faint smile, "So, Are you planning to marry into our Xiaoyao sect? Ouyang Qing's eyes suddenly widened. She simply could not believe what she had heard. Little Sheng, you're willing to forgive me? You're willing to be with me? He secretly pinched his thigh. It hurts. I'm not dreaming. Chapter 1823. Ling Yuxing was amused by his silly look. He blinked and said with a sly expression, "What? You don't want to marry into the Xiaorao school?" No, 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 I do. What a joke. As long as he could be with Xiaoxing again, he would be willing to marry into the Xiaoyao school, let alone marry into the Xiaoyao school. Ouyang Qing hugged the boy in his arms. Feeling the familiar breath of the boy, he felt that he wasn't dreaming. This was the greatest treasure of his life. He had lost his treasure once, but from now on, he would never lose it again. Oh, they're hugging each other. Hugging each other. We're going to have a fifth sister-in-law in the future. Huh? Ouyang Qing, you idiot. Why didn't you kiss her when you hugged her? Yeah, kiss her, kiss her. Chatter came from the door. Although it was very low, Ling Yuxing had just activated his domain, and his 5 senses were very sharp. How could he not hear it? Expressionlessly, he walked to the door and pulled it open. Instantly, several figures rushed in from the outside. Hello, fifth brother? Xiaowu. We're here to see if fifth sister-in-law has recovered. Mayan touched her nose. Ahem. Fifth brother. What's your next plan? Do you want to go back to Cloud City? Back to Cloud City? Ling Yuxing was startled. The place that had once brought him joy and pain. Did he still want to go back? Ouyang Qing grabbed his hand and said nervously, Xiaoxing, go back with me. Don't you want to see your parents and brother? Ling Yuxing smiled bitterly. They won't want to see me. For the Ling family, his son was the shame of the whole family. Ouyang Qing said, but a few years ago, I ran into your brother, and he beat me up. He said that my Xiaoxing has been so obedient and sensible since he was a child. He would never force anything. It must be your Ouyang family's fault. He only hated that he couldn't get justice for his brother. Ling Yuxing was shocked. That's impossible. He still remembered the last time he saw his parents and brother. His parents were so sad and angry, and his brother told him to get out and never go back to the Ling family. Ouyang Qing said, I swear to God, this is all true. Little Sheng, they might have chased you away on impulse back then, but now they regret it. Don't you want to see them again? Ling Yuxing's heart was in a mess. He had never told anyone that Ouyang Xiangdong had coveted his innate spiritual root. Therefore, from the beginning, he had made up his mind that he would never return to Cloudpiercer City in this life. However, Ouyang Qing's words caused his heart to waver. Would his parents and brother, who had doted on him and protected him so much, really be so heartless to him? Maybe they really forgive me? Mu Yin suddenly said, Fifth senior brother, are we going to Purple Cloud Realm's Dragon Soaring Academy to participate in the Deer Cry Banquet? It just so happens that I also want to bring Little Bao around. If fifth senior brother doesn't mind, why don't you be our guide and let us experience the cloud-piercing city at the border of the Azure Blue world? Lung Yuma also grinned and said, That's right, that's right. No matter what kind of monsters and demons are in cloud-piercing city, us brothers will accompany you. It's naturally good if no one comes to cause trouble, but if there are really blind people who want to deal with fifth senior brother, we'll let them experience what the unfettered seven devils are. Chapter 1824. Cough, cough. Fourth senior sister, keep a low profile. We are clearly the Carefree Seven, the Carefree Seven heroes. How did we become the Carefree Seven devils? Huh? That's because our Xiao Yao sect's most powerful disciple is our junior sister, nicknamed the Female Demon. Since junior sister is a demon, then we, the Unfettered Seven, can only accompany junior sister in becoming a demon. Mu Yin pressed the blue veins on her forehead. She didn't want the title of she-devil at all, nor did she want to be one of the seven devils of freedom. Thank you. Listening to the words of Mu Yin and his fellow apprentices, Ling Yuxing's eyes brightened up with a bright light. All the hesitation and fear in his heart seemed to have been blown away by a gust of wind. It was as long as he had these senior and junior brothers and sisters by his side, as long as he was still a member of the Unfettered Seven, he would never have to be afraid or indecisive. Ling Yuxing composed himself and said in a deep voice, "All right, let's go to Cloudpiercer City." After so many years, he finally had the courage to return to that place and face the past and the future. During this period, the leaders of the 5 clans of the Azure Blue world stayed in the Starry School. On one hand, he wanted to ask Xiaobao for advice on how to improve the strength of his clan's little ancestors and unearth their innate talents. Secondly, he was shocked by the strength of the Carefree team and wanted to witness it with his own eyes. Today, when he heard that Yun Ruhan and Mu Yin had come to bid farewell to Meng Baichuan and leave for the Purple Cloud Realm in advance, he couldn't help but be stunned. Naylan Qing stroked his beard and said, "You guys are rushing to the Purple Cloud Realm so early. Are you trying to get used to the strength of the strong early? This is also good. Perhaps this time, the result of our Azure Blue domain in the Deer Cry Grand Banquet will not be at the bottom without any ability to resist." The people of the Xiaorao sect were stunned. Adapt to the strength of a powerful expert? However, before they could say anything, a young girl standing behind Naylan Qing couldn't help but say, "Grandpa, don't be alarmist. The Carefree team wasn't as weak as they used to be. They had God Yi, the strongest support, who could even defeat Tian Haiba, a nascent soul cultivator. Even if he went to the Purple Cloud Realm, he would be invincible. Why would he need to adapt to the strength of some expert?" Naylan Qing shook his head. "A frog at the bottom of a well? A frog at the bottom of a well? Dong, you don't understand how powerful those geniuses from the Dragon Soaring Academy are." The girl who spoke was called Naylan Dongyun. She was also Naylan Qing's granddaughter and the youngest generation of the Naylan family. However, her talent was not as good as Naylan Yan's, so she did not receive as much attention as Naylan Yan. However, not only is Naylan Dongyun not jealous of Naylan Yan, she even shamelessly pesters Naylan Yan after learning that her little cousin is coming to see Mayan. Because she was a die-hard fan of Jun Mayan, Yi Liangchen, and the Xiao Yao 7 sons. Even Grandpa couldn't tolerate anyone who slandered his idol. What's wrong with being a genius? Were the Xiao Yao 7 not geniuses? I don't care. Great God Yi, when you go to Long Tongue Academy, you must beat those arrogant fellows until they're looking for their teeth all over the ground. Naylan Qing awkwardly shows a wry smile towards Mayan and the others, and then solemnly says, "Miss June, do you know, in the entire Xiuzhen continent, how many people have awakened their domain before the age of 25? Then, without waiting for Mu Yin and the others to answer, he immediately said, "Less than 100 people. And of these 100 people, 90% were in the Purple Cloud Realm. And of the geniuses of the Purple Cloud domain, at least 30% will participate in the Deer Cry Grand Banquet." Hearing Naylan Qing's words, the faces of the people of the Xiao Yao sect and Mu Yin changed. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.